I get stronger by spending money in Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Secret Passage. How about this? I can help you with your potions class. Caitlin proposed a solution. I don't ask you to have a correct attitude towards this subject. I just hope you don't lose points for the house in potions class. Joel and Eddie thought for a long time, and it seemed that they could not find any reason to refute, so they could only agree to Caitlin's tutoring request. She agreed to meet at the entrance of the library at 6:30 every Wednesday night. Joel's focus was not on this matter. He was still thinking about how to sneak out of Hogwarts Castle on the weekend. At lunch, he found his target. Joel got out from behind the Weasley twins. The Weasley brothers sat side by side. He patted the right shoulder of the Weasley brother on the left, and then patted the left shoulder of the Weasley brother on the right. "Don't touch me, George. You too, Fred." "I almost spilled the stew on the napkin," the Weasley brothers complained face to face, and then they saw Joel's head sandwiched between their shoulders. "It's been a long time since we met, Mr. Weasley," Joel greeted. "Hey, who are you?" Fred's brain was down for a while before he realized Joel's name, Little Joel. "Since we parted on the train, we've missed you so much." George also acted like he was touched by the long-lost reunion. "Don't say that," Joel sighed and said with a bitter face. "You two deceived me so badly at that time. You lied to me that the sorting ceremony would involve fighting with the Welsh green dragon. I was so nervous that I almost fainted while waiting for the sorting in the small room next to the auditorium," Joel said exaggeratedly. "Many freshmen saw me embarrassed at that time," Joel said miserably. The Weasley twins didn't expect Joel to play the victim right away, and they were at a loss for a moment. "What do you want to do?" Fred turned his head and whispered. Joel said seriously, "I have hypoglycemia. Sometimes I feel nervous when I get up early to go to class. I heard that the Honeydukes candy in Hogsmeade is very good. I want to go there to buy some candy to eat." Hypoglycemia, what is that? George frowned. He and Fred had never heard of this word. "It's just that when you are fasting." Joel had to explain to them the causes and consequences of hypoglycemia. He had never learned about this before, and his explanation was halting, and the Weasley brothers were also confused. "If you have hypoglycemia in the morning, you have to eat 2 pieces of candy, otherwise you will feel very uncomfortable, and you may even faint, right?" George concluded. Joel nodded vigorously. "If you want candy, I still have a lot in my dormitory. I can give it to you as compensation." Fred made a suggestion. "No, our tastes are different." Joel certainly couldn't accept this suggestion, so he wanted to get the secret passage out of Hogwarts Castle from the Weasley brothers. After all, in the original book, the Weasley brothers can be said to be the students who are most familiar with Hogwarts Castle. George and Fred looked at each other, and the twin brothers hesitated. "Hey, I was deceived by your lies before, and couldn't get off the stage in front of everyone." Seeing this, Joel hurriedly urged, trying to stimulate their guilt. "We lied about the sorting ceremony, but I think you must have exaggerated the facts." George shook his head. "Katie," he suddenly shouted. A tall and thin girl turned her head from the other end of the long table. "What's wrong, Fred?" It was Katie Bell. Joel had seen her at the sorting ceremony. "I'm George. You've seen Jo before." George didn't finish his words before Joel covered his mouth. "I just want to go to Hogsmeade for a trip. You two just need to tell me the secret passage," Joel whispered in George's ear. "Otherwise I'll tell Mr. Filch to block you two at the door of the Gryffindor common room after curfew. If you two are capable, don't go back to the dormitory to sleep all night when you go out to explore." George and Fred beside him didn't expect Joel to come up with such a method. The Gryffindor common room was on the tower, and there was only one way in and out, the portrait of the fat lady. Okay. The Weasley twins also figured it out. It was nothing more than telling Joel a secret passage to Hogsmeade. If they didn't let him do what he wanted, they wouldn't have to think about going out to explore after curfew in the future. "There is a one-eyed witch statue in the corridor on the 4th floor near the West Tower," Behind the statue is a passage to Hogsmeade. We agreed that you are not allowed to tell Filch secretly and let him wait for it. Fred asked Joel to promise. Of course, I have achieved my goal. Why should I do such a thankless thing as informing on you? Joel's words made sense. The Weasley brothers looked at each other and sighed. They could only comfort themselves in their hearts that this was to make up for the lie of the sorting ceremony. After Joel got the location of the secret passage, he shared the news with Sergei. The two of them agreed to go to Diagon Alley together on Saturday morning. On Saturday morning, Joel and Sergei sat at the long table in the auditorium to fill their stomachs that had been hungry all night. Try to eat less. We will have a long and rugged journey soon, Joel kindly reminded. Oh. Sergei nodded, ate 2 more slices of bread, and followed Joel to climb up to the 4th floor of the castle. In order not to attract attention, the two of them also changed their Hogwarts school robes and wore only plain black robes. In the corridor leading to the West Tower, Joel saw the one-eyed witch statue. The witch hunched over, and Joel pushed it to the side, revealing a passage behind. Come on, the slope here is a bit steep, be careful when walking. Joel and Sergei each walked into the passage holding a set of scrolls. After the two left, the one-eyed witch returned to her original position and continued to look forward with her only eye. It happened that a ray of sunlight in the early morning shone through the window of the castle on the eyes of the statue. Quiet and beautiful. The passage was steep and long, and Joel and Sergei walked for half an hour before they reached the end. At the end of the passage, there was a straight ladder leading up. Joel handed the scroll in his hand to Sergei and climbed up quickly with his hands and feet and moved the wooden board above the ladder with both hands. Then he turned around, took the scroll, and climbed up. They were now inside Honeydukes candy store. The store had just opened, and today was not a visit day for Hogwarts students to come to Hogsmeade. There were not many people in the store, only an old man sitting at the counter counting the bills. When the two appeared, the old man looked up and then buried his head to continue doing his work, as if he had gotten used to it. Please vote for me. Chapter 27. Rushing to Nocturne Alley. The shelves here are filled with all kinds of candies, lollipop quills, exploding jelly beans, and Bibby multi-flavor beans. We can buy some to try when we come back. Joel felt very curious when he saw the candies in the magical world. Sergei nodded and hugged the thick book in his arms tightly. This is his greatest wealth. Joel and Sergei slipped out of Honeydukes candy store. This is Hogsmeade Village, the only pure wizard village in the UK. Hundreds of wizards live here. There are bars, restaurants, post offices, everything. He stretched out his wand horizontally and made the gesture of hailing a taxi in his previous life. 5 seconds later, accompanied by a deafening roar, a purple 3-decker bus suddenly appeared. Good morning, 2 people. Welcome to the night bus. I'm the conductor Stan Shunpike. The sliding door of the bus opened, and a tall and thin boy in a purple uniform jumped down. He looked about 18 or 19 years old, with a pair of eye-catching protruding ears and a few pimples on his face. The moment Stan saw Joel and Sergei, he was stunned. How old are you two? Joel said calmly, almost 11 years old, and will go to Hogwarts next year. Of course, he would not tell the real age, because he could not let Stan know that he and Sergei had sneaked out of Hogwarts. Oh. Stan nodded, mistakenly thinking that the two were wizard children living here. Tell me your destination. Nocturne Alley. Nocturne Alley? Stan frowned. We are not going there. How about Diagon Alley? Joel nodded. Okay, but do you know how to get to Nocturne Alley from Diagon Alley? Stan shook his head. I haven't been there either. You can ask someone. When you get to Diagon Alley, it costs 11 silver sickles to go to Diagon Alley, plus 3 sickles, and you can get a cup of hot chocolate. Joel did not have that much money, so Sergei took out 2 galleons from his pocket and handed them to Stan. No hot chocolate, Sergei emphasized. 3 sickles for a cup of hot chocolate, that's 87 copper nuts. How much is chocolate powder worth? It's a great deal. The 3 of them boarded the bus. Stan put the galleons into his waist bag and then took out the silver coins from it to give to Sergei. This is Ernplan, a veteran driver with 20 years of driving experience. Stan introduced them to the elderly wizard sitting in the driver's seat. The wizard wore a pair of glasses with lenses as thick as the bottom of a beer bottle, which made Joel suspect that he couldn't see the road clearly. It will take some time to get to Diagon Alley. I'll take you inside to rest. Stan led them inside. The bus was very dark. 6 copper-framed beds were placed around. Unlit candles were inserted on the shelves on the wall, and there was a narrow wooden staircase leading upstairs. Joel and Sergey each picked a bed, and the moment they lay down, the night bus started. Wernplan was indeed an old driver, but the speed was too fast for Joel to bear. The bus was very bumpy inside, and the items in the cabinets were shaking left and right, and even his stomach was churning. Fortunately, they didn't eat much in the morning, otherwise they would have to vomit. 15 minutes later, they successfully arrived at Diagon Alley. Have a nice trip today. Stan sent them off the bus and waved goodbye. The night bus twisted into a pretzel in Joel's sight and disappeared in this space. Today is the weekend, and many wizards are shopping in Diagon Alley. The streets are crowded with people. There are few descriptions of how to enter Nocturne Alley in the original book. Although Diagon Alley is not big, there are at least dozens of forks. Joel doesn't know which one leads to Nocturne Alley. As the conductor Stan said, he must find someone to ask for directions. Hello, ma'am. Do you know how to get to Nocturne Alley? Joel saw a short, fat, and kind-looking lady and hurriedly stepped forward to ask. Nocturne Alley. The lady looked at Joel and Sergey with kindness. I don't recommend that you two children who haven't started school go to such a dangerous place alone. She was holding a boy and a girl who looked about the same age as Joel and had red hair. The girl's eyes wandered on Joel's handsome face, while the boy was obsessed with the Comet Broom and the Quidditch boutique, his eyes full of envy. Joel looked at the two red-haired children and suddenly felt something was wrong. It can't be such a coincidence, right? Where are your parents? Well, they are at work today and entrusted us to sell these 2 volumes. Joel made up an excuse and showed her the book that he was holding in his chest. She didn't want to go to that dark alley, but she was kind-hearted and didn't feel at ease letting the 2 children go to Nocturne Alley by themselves. Anyway, she had finished her own business, so she might as well. How about this? I'll take you to there. You stay with me and don't walk around. If other wizards talk to you, don't pay attention to them. She led them to a fork in the road. It was Joel's first time to visit Diagon Alley. He followed the fat lady and imprinted the scenery in Diagon Alley in his mind. Quidditch boutique, Jishu stationery store, Flourish and Blot's bookstore. Every store was clean and bright. Through the transparent French windows, you could see many wizards shopping inside. The business was very lively and prosperous. What are your names? The fat lady asked with a smile. I'm Joel, and he's Sergey. Joel thought for a moment and added, we are going to Hogwarts next year. That's just the same grade as Ron. The fat lady looked at her youngest son. I forgot to introduce you just now. This is my youngest son Ron Weasley, and this is my youngest daughter Ginny. She won't go to school until the year after next. You can just call me Mrs. Weasley. It was exactly as Joel expected. Yesterday, I just learned from the Weasley twins about the secret passage to Hogsmeade. Today, when I arrived at Diagon Alley, Mrs. Weasley was going to send me to Nocturne Alley again. The Weasley family is really the patron saint of my book sales. The 4 children simply greeted each other, without any intention of making further acquaintances. The group walked into the fork in the road. There were also some shops in this alley, but the scale and flow of people were much smaller than the main road. The further they went in, the fewer people there were. When the hustle and bustle ended, silence gradually took over the street. The 4 children followed Mrs. Weasley closely. The decoration styles of the shops on both sides of the road were becoming more and more gloomy. One store even hung a dried human head on the curtains. The eye sockets were sunken, the skin was dry and without moisture, and the gullies were like a dried up river. It seems that we have entered the territory of Nocturne Alley. Please vote for recommendation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Deal Negotiation. Ginny, don't look there. Ron stretched out his hand to cover Ginny's eyes, preventing her from looking at the ugly and terrifying head. Ron, look, what a big black spider. Ginny's crisp voice was as cute as a lark. Ron had been afraid of spiders since he was a child. He was frightened by Ginny's words and his face turned pale. He jumped 3 feet high. Where is it? Where is it? He asked repeatedly. There are no black spiders here. Mrs. Weasley whispered. Don't scare your brother, Ginny. You know he is timid. Ron pouted his lips in dissatisfaction after hearing this, and Ginny giggled, which actually dispersed a lot of the dark atmosphere around. Borgin and Burks is just in front. Sergey nudged Joel's ribs with his elbow and whispered. Joel also saw the sign on the shop in front of him. There was a small skull hanging on the sign, and the skull's eyes were still glowing green. Combined with the dark environment around, it looked quite creepy. After explaining the situation to Mrs. Weasley, she insisted on waiting outside the store to take them home, which made Joel even more moved. It was really lucky to meet such a kind-hearted person. Joel and Sergey pushed open the door of Borgin and Burks. The interior of the store was extremely dark. There was not a single light in the huge room. The only light source was the collection in the store, all kinds of gems and magical animals with cold eyes. In addition, Joel also saw several black spider corpses the size of a head. If Ron saw this thing, he would definitely jump up and panic. Most of the goods displayed in the store were very strange, with human hands and heads in various postures. Joel speculated that most of them were black magic items. A thin man was lying on the counter. His face looked very similar to the withered head that had just entered Nocturne Alley. His face was full of wrinkles, like a dry bark. Good morning, gentlemen, the man said in a sinister tone when he saw Joel and Sergey walking in. Mr. Borgenberg. Joel took out the book in his arms. Chadwick's Magic, I wrote to you before. Sergey also took out his set of books. Ah. Borgenberg glanced at Joel and the other man, who were only a few centimeters taller than the counter, and stretched out his slender spider-like fingers to take the book. You two are younger than I thought. The anti-copying spell of the book is intact. Borgenberg rubbed his fingers on the book and said in a feminine tone, the whole set of books has no obvious damage. The pages are not yellowed, and they are well preserved. Sergey breathed a sigh of relief. According to Borgenberg, the value of this book should not be low. As for the authenticity of the signature, Borgenberg turned to the title page of the book and paused for a moment when he looked at Chadwick's signature. He looked up at Joel and Sergey and found that they were expressionless and not panicked at all. Joel and Sergey certainly would not panic. This was a reward given to them by Professor Flitwick, and it would definitely not be a fake. Borgenberg coughed. You know, there are a lot of counterfeit signatures on the market now. There are ways to detect that. Otherwise, how could those rare books with the original author's signature be sold at such a high price? Joel said. Of course. Borgenberg laughed dryly, and the wrinkles on his face were squeezed together. He took out a pair of old-looking pince-nez from the drawer, put them on, and studied the signature carefully. Joel observed that when Borgenberg's eyes swept over the signature, the lenses of the pince-nez flashed a light blue light, thinking it was also a treasure. Borgenberg flipped the title page of each book back and forth, and put the pince-nez away 10 minutes later. He took a deep breath. The signature is also fine. It was signed by Mr. Choik Boot about 50 years ago. How much are you willing to pay? Joel asked. How much do you want to sell it for? Tell me a number. Borgenberg looked at the two with his triangular eyes that looked very fierce. Joel and he looked at each other, and they knew that the most difficult battle to reach this deal had already begun. They had to fight for every galleon with the greatest effort. The first offer was particularly critical, as it was related to the price bottom line of both parties. The signed edition of Chadwick's Magic sold at the New York auction 5 years ago was priced at 200 galleons. Joel spoke first. That's right. Borgenberg nodded in agreement. After Chadwick Boot passed away, the number of signed books left in the world has become fewer and fewer. Most of them have been kept as collections by major pureblood families and have never been circulated. Moreover, as the founder of Alvermorny School in the United States, Chadwick's main activity area is naturally in the United States. The number of books circulated in the United Kingdom is even fewer. Joel explained with reason and evidence. Scarcity makes things valuable, don't you think? Borgenberg heard clearly what he meant. Joel wanted more than 200 galleons. The essence of scarcity is that there is competition in the market. If the supply is less than the demand, the price will naturally rise. I admit that Choik Boot is a great wizard, but he is not famous in the British wizarding world, and there are not many buyers willing to collect these books. With only his signature, this book cannot be worth much. Borgin Burke's brain was spinning rapidly. He did not treat Joel as a child. No one would underestimate the enemy in front of money. He had already calculated the next buyer to sell it to. The Malfoy family would definitely like this level of collection. In this way, the price he sold it to could be appropriately increased. Anyway, the Malfoy family has so much money. The market price is 3 galleons per book, and there are 7 books in a set. If there is no signature, this set of books should be priced at 21 galleons. I will give you 9 times the price. How about 189 galleons? Borgin Burke made his offer. From the beginning of the price tug-of-war, Sergei stood aside with his arms folded and watched. He did not have the dexterous negotiation ability of Joel, and he could not figure out the ways of the world. Joel came forward, and Sergei was happy to be idle. 210 galleons. Give me 21 more galleons, and this set of books will be yours. Joel suddenly laughed. You have to think it over. If we entrust someone in New York to auction the books, the price of this book will probably be higher than this price. The reason why we don't auction in the United States is because the United States across the ocean is the sad place of my friend next to me. Joel suddenly threw Sergei out. He was staring at the specimens in the shop in a daze, and he was a little flustered when he heard his name. Borgin Burke looked suspicious and looked at Sergei, who was standing aside with a cold and indifferent temperament. Sergei was wearing an ordinary wizard's black robe. The material of the robe could not be seen clearly in the dim shop, but this temperament was quite similar to Lucius Malfoy, the head of the Malfoy family, whom Borgin Burke had met before. The same arrogant. He was born into a hidden family in the United States. His parents got into trouble and were exiled to faraway England. When he came, he brought some family heirlooms with him, which he sold to buy some daily necessities. Joel summarized the plot of a novel that could be written into hundreds of thousands of words in just one sentence. This shocked Sergei, the person involved. What hidden family? How come I don't know about it? Please recommend. Chapter 29, Deal. The first pot of gold arrives. Really? Borgin and Burke were a little uncertain. But in his opinion, Sergei really looked like he was from a pure-blood family. Those mudbloods who broke into the muggle world didn't have such temperament. Sergei saw Joel turned his head and blinked at him and looked into his trouser pocket. Trouser pocket? What's in the trouser pocket? The wand. Sergei's mind turned quickly and he took out the wand from his trouser pocket. Clear water like a spring. Under Borgin and Burke's horrified expression, a stream of water shot out from the tip of the wand and shot straight to the ceiling. After the clear water shot to the ceiling, a few drops of water splashed into Borgin and Burke's mouth, which was slightly opened due to surprise. It was cool and sweet. Borgin and Burke were also wizards who had received Hogwarts magic education. This clear water like a spring spell seemed simple, but it was a combination of transfiguration and charms. The difficulty was to create drinkable water. Ordinary students would only learn it in the 6th grade, and it was the key test content of the Ultimate Wizard Assessment Newt. Sergei looked like he was only 12 or 13 years old, but he could cast such a profound spell. This made Borgin and Burke believe that, if Sergei was not born in a pure-blood family and had practiced spells since childhood, he would be an absolute spell genius. No matter which result, Borgin and Burke planned to build a good relationship with him and increase the price of each set of books by 21 galleons. The former had been rooted in the magic world for many years, with various relationships and unimaginable wealth. If, as Joel said, Sergei was expelled to the UK by a hidden family, once he was accepted by the family again, the benefits he could bring to Borgin and Burke in the future would be more than these dozens of galleons. If he was a spell genius, he must not be offended. Borgin and Burke still remembered the handsome boy who interned in his store 50 years ago. He was brilliant and proficient in black magic. Later, he became the man whose name could not be spoken. Fortunately, he treated him well at that time and resigned in a friendly way. Otherwise, with the character of the mysterious man, he would have died dozens of times. It was only 42 galleons more, which was nothing to him. He could even raise the price of the books to the Malfoy family by 50 galleons to make up for the loss. However, in the eyes of Joel and Sergei, these galleons were a huge sum of money. They couldn't even take out so many gold coins, even if they emptied their pockets. Borgin and Burke pondered for a moment. Okay, 210 galleons for a set of books. That's a deal. Do you want a Gringotts draft or cash? Cash, Joel said. The draft had to be cashed at Gringotts, and Joel was too lazy to do such a thing. Cash. Sergei nodded. You count them. There are 100 gold galleons in a cloth bag. If there is no problem, I will take the books. Borgin and Burke opened the drawer under the counter, took out 4 heavy grey cloth bags from it, and then counted out 40 galleons to them. Joel opened the grey cloth bag, and there were neatly arranged piles of gold coins inside, which were particularly eye-catching in the dim room. Joel was fascinated by the crisp sound of the gold galleons stacked together and colliding with each other. This was the first pot of gold that made him rich. No problem. After Joel and Sergei counted the galleons in their hands, Borgin and Burke carefully put the 2 sets of books into the cabinet behind them. Do you need any other dark magic items? Borgin and Burke said in a cold voice. I have everything here. No, thank you. Joel looked at the objects around him, which were really a bit scary, making him lose interest in buying anything. If there are any rare things in the future, we will come again. The 2 put the cloth bag containing galleons into their arms, said goodbye to Burke, and left the gloomy store. Mrs. Wheeleye was still waiting for them outside with a child in one hand, her face full of tension. Ron and Ginny huddled tightly under the protection of their mother, staring at the stones under their feet with their heads down, not daring to look at the dark magic shops on the roadside. The windows of those shops were filled with all kinds of terrifying skulls and animal and human torsos. Joel felt warm at the sight of this scene. A stranger who had never met before was willing to bring 2 young children to protect your safety in the gloomy nocturne alley. He was too kind. Mrs. Wheeleye, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Joel dragged Sergei to Mrs. Wheeleye's side. It's okay. Mrs. Wheeleye was relieved when she saw Joel and Sergei come out. Ron and Ginny breathed a sigh of relief. They could finally leave this gloomy nocturne alley. The group hurried back. During this time, several wizards in black robes and black hoods cast malicious glances at the children. Madam, do you want aphrodisiacs? I guarantee the effect is excellent. A man followed quietly. Get out. Mrs. Wheeleye shouted. Aphrodisiacs are prohibited items. If you don't want me to find someone from the Ministry of Magic's Prohibition of Abuse of Magic department to arrest you, get out of my way. Mrs. Wheeleye's brown hair was fluffy when she roared, like a lioness protecting her cubs. The man was startled and muttered something unwillingly, but he retreated obediently under Mrs. Wheeleye's murderous gaze. The few people returned to Diagon Alley without any obstacles. Leaving the dark alley, they felt that the blue sky above their heads was much brighter, the surroundings were bustling, and the chill in their hearts was also dispelled a lot. Thank you for your care, Mrs. Wheeleye. Joel thanked sincerely. If it weren't for Mrs. Wheeleye protecting them, who knows what would have happened to him and Sergei in Nocturne Alley. In this way, the thanks and words seemed a little pale and powerless. Joel glanced to the side and came up with a good idea to thank him. Wait for us for a while. Joel pulled Sergei to the Florin Fusco ice cream shop on the street. Hello, please give us 3 raspberry ice creams. Joel shouted. A middle-aged man with a genial face and tufted hair came out. He smiled and nodded at the 2 of them, holding the cone in his hand and scooping ice cream. What are you doing? Sergei asked in confusion, his eyebrows knitted together. Joel suddenly didn't know how to explain to him. Mrs. Wheeleye has helped us a lot. We can give her some gifts. Wouldn't it be more direct to give galleons? Sergei tilted his head. You don't know if they like raspberry ice cream. Joel found that there was a reason why Sergei had such a cold personality. He didn't seem to know how to get along with people. If he gave the Wheeleye family gold galleons to express his gratitude, Mrs. Wheeleye would probably throw the galleons back in his face. No one does this. You think it's a red envelope for the new year? Please recommend. Vote. Regarding the clear water spell, it is excerpted from Harry Potter, and the half-blood Prince Seamus was immersed in his longing and swung his wand a little too hard, and the clear water that he was supposed to turn into a spring in the spell of charms class that day turned into a water dragon, which shot up to the ceiling and bounced back and hit Professor Flitwick in the face. Chapter 30, Too Sweet to Make Your Teeth Fall Out. While Boss Florin was eating ice cream, Joel and Sergi taught him some simple etiquette, at least to let him know that it is best not to give gold galleons directly to express gratitude to others. This would make people feel uncomfortable. When it came time to pay, Sergi offered to split the bill, and Joel returned the 11 sickles from the night bus to him. They ran out with 3 servings of raspberry ice cream. Mrs. Weasley, this is a gift for you. Joel handed the ice cream in his hand to Sergi to demonstrate. Thank you for taking us to Nocturne Alley. Mrs. Weasley didn't want to take it at first, but her 2 children were very quick and had already taken the ice cream from Sergi and licked it. She hesitated for a moment and took it too. Thank you. She felt a little embarrassed watching the 2 children wolfing it down. There were 7 children in the family, but only the eldest son Bill and his husband Arthur Weasley had jobs. The family could not provide a comfortable life for their children with just the meager salary. To put it bluntly, the salary was not enough to even provide enough food and clothing for the children. Both the Edgemores worked, but this made Marita feel that her life was not rich enough, and she even developed the habit of despising the poor and loving the rich, not to mention the Weasley family with 6 children. Mrs. Weasley did not consider the usual 6666 ice cream at all. She felt guilty every time she saw the children envious of the delicious food in the window. Where is your home? Mrs. Weasley looked at Ron and Ginny lovingly, then looked at Joel. I'll take you back. No need, Mrs. Weasley. Joel and Sergi still had things to do. We too still have to go to Flourish and Blots to buy some books, and we can take the night bus back later. Night bus? Hearing this name, Mrs. Weasley felt a little relieved. It's safe. You can make friends with Ron. Next year, the 3 of you will go to Hogwarts to study, and you can be a companion. Mrs. Weasley took the initiative to say, sure. Joel smiled. You live in the borough, outside Ottery St. Catchpole, Devon, Mrs. Weasley said with a smile. The owl knows the place. I remember it. Goodbye Mrs. Weasley, Ron, and Ginny. Joel waved goodbye to the 3 of them. He was looking forward to Ron's surprised expression when he found out his true identity when he entered school next year. Ginny and Ron said goodbye to the 2 of them. After all, they had given them ice cream. When the 2 children left, they had already forgotten the memory of Nocturne Alley. They licked their ice cream and followed Mrs. Weasley away. Let's go to Flourish and Blots. Joel pulled Sergi, who was still in a daze. Oh. Sergi was stunned for a moment and was pulled away by Joel. Don't pull my clothes. If you tear my robe, I will have to make it custom made. The 2 spent 21 galleons to buy a set of Chadwick's Magic at Flourish and Blots, planning to take it back to school to study hard. Joel also went to Ella Owl Shop to choose a brown female owl as his pet and named her Poppy. Eddie and Alan both have their own owls in the dormitory, but both of them only use them as messengers and usually keep them in the Hogwarts owl shed. Joel does not plan to put his owl in the shed. He also specially selected several owl foods and prepared to feed them to satisfy his regret of not having a pet in his previous life. Sergi looked at the owl lying on Joel's shoulder and couldn't help but pick a handsome snowy owl with spots on its snow white fur. He named it Caesar, which sounds very domineering. The 2 of them took the owl cage and a complete set of spell books on the night bus. After paying the conductor Stan 11 sickles each, they started their journey back to Hogsmeade. 10 minutes later, Joel and Sergi jumped off the bus with their 2 dizzy pets and stepped on the streets of Hogsmeade. The night bus still whizzed past to receive the next passenger in need. The 2 returned to Honeyduke's candy store, and just as they had said before, they picked up all kinds of candies in the store, packed them up, and stuffed them into their bags. After saying goodbye to the old man, they lifted the wooden board and followed the secret passage back to Hogwarts Castle. I'm so tired. Joel pushed open the door of the dormitory, put away the things he bought, and then fell on his back on the bed, looking up at the stars on the ceiling, and began to be dazed. Sergi took out his candy bag hesitated for a moment, and asked Alan, who was sitting at the desk reading a book, "Do you want some?" Alan shook his head when he saw the candies. "I don't want any. I ate these candies every day when I was a child, and I'm almost tired of them. Eat them every day." Eddie jumped up from the bed and grabbed 2 sizzling bees from Serge's candy bag. "Is there such a good thing?" "What good thing?" Alan said unhappily. "My grandfather taught me to study the flavors of various Bibi multi-flavor beans since I was a child, and fed me some strange candies every day and asked me to make the recipes according to the candy flavors. You have to do this kind of thing at such a young age." Eddie's eyes widened in surprise. Joel also took out 2 chocolates from his candy bag. "Hiss," he frowned. "It's so sweet that it makes your teeth fall out. You can't eat too much candy." The roommates were very interested in Alan's miserable life as a child and kept asking him how he made the candy recipe. It wasn't until Alan mentioned that the large manor he lived in was as big as a dozen Quidditch fields that Eddie and Sergi fell silent. After lying on the bed and resting for a while, Joel counted his remaining money. 2 night bus rides cost 22 sickles. Owl Poppy cost 15 galleons. Ice cream 9 sickles. A new set of Chadwick's Magic 21 galleons. Owl food 15 sickles 10 nuts. Candy 25 sickles 19 nuts. A total of 40 galleons and 4 sickles. He hadn't done anything yet, and 40 galleons were thrown away. Joel felt distressed because this was 1/4 of his total assets. After lunch, he began to write a paper on the history of magic, which was due the day after tomorrow. "Joel, what are you doing?" Eddie hummed in bed after eating and drinking in the hall. Sergi ran to the library to read, and Alan went to meet Marita. Joel and Eddie were the only ones left in the dormitory. "The paper on the history of magic is due the day after tomorrow." Joel didn't even raise his head and wrote furiously on the parchment. The subject of magic history, which is more inclined to memory and discussion, is not difficult for Joel. He was a top student in his previous life. He wrote this paper on the wizard secrecy statute and quoted classics and cited cases from various countries in the magic history textbook to illustrate. He especially elaborated on the conflict between wizards and muggles in Europe in the 17th century, which directly led to the promulgation of the wizard secrecy statute. In the following years, the conflict between muggles and wizards spread to West Asia and South America. Ministries of magic were established in various regions, and wizard activities gradually moved underground. History of magic. Eddie almost forgot about this course. There was no other reason. This course really had no sense of existence in Hogwarts. The tone of Professor Binns's lectures did not change at all. It was simply a hypnotic artifact. Many students took a nap in this class. Eddie picked up the book and found that it was clean, and there was not even a note on the book. He had never attended the class. "Joel, please save me," Eddie kept humming. "Lend it to me after you finish writing the paper." Joel nodded, and an idea flashed in his mind. It seems that he has business to do again. Please recommend. Chapter 31. Appreciation. "Eddie, are you interested in the history of magic?" Joel looked at the parchment in front of him. It should be noted that the standard for assignments at Hogwarts is not the number of words, but the length. Most of the papers for lower grades are required to be 10 inches long, while the paper written by Joel is about 17 inches long, and the words are very small and neatly coded together. People with obsessive compulsive disorder would say it is good. History of magic? Eddie shook his head violently. It's not that I don't want to learn it, it's just that Professor Binns is too hypnotic. It's not just me. Most students can't listen to the class. Eddie sighed. Students in our college can even sleep until the second half of the course when they can't listen anymore. But Hufflepuff students lie on the table as soon as the history of magic class starts. Joel was delighted when he heard this, and Eddie wondered, why are you so happy? Hurry up and lend me your paper. Eddie pulled the paper off Joel's desk. This business is definitely feasible. Joel snapped his fingers. What business? Eddie became excited. Make a review outline for the history of magic. Joel said, everyone doesn't like the history of magic, but they want to get better grades. Let's draw the exam outline and key points. Whether it's an OWL level assessment involving future prospects or an ordinary final exam, the history of magic is a required course. They don't want to waste time and energy on boring history of magic, so let us complete the steps of simplifying the book statistics for them. Joel's eyes lit up. Don't you think this task is too complicated for us first year students? Eddie spread his hands. It's better to think of some simple ways to make money. No. Joel stood up and paced in the dormitory. The afternoon sun shone on him through the window. This is a step we must take. Eddie, think about it carefully. If we continue to do things that have no technical content, it will be as easy to copy as playing cards. Joel's words reminded Eddie. He still remembered that group of Slytherin seniors who tuck away all their playing card business because the production of playing cards really had no technical content. It was impossible for them to win the market with their magic level under the stereotyped, simple and rough production standards. Without the magic of senior students, they can only rely on their smart brains. Extraordinary wisdom is the greatest wealth of mankind. What Ms. Ravenclaw said is absolutely right. In the evening, Sergei and Alan returned to the dormitory. Alan held a letter in his hand, and his eyebrows were more relaxed. Eddie and Joel told Sergei about the new money-making plan. The history of magic is only the first step for us to open up the market. After that, we can integrate the subjects we are good at and produce a lot of teaching materials. Eddie painted a big picture and imagined the future life. This is a good idea, but let's do a good job of the history of magic in front of us first. Joel poured a basin of cold water on him. But the history of magic is different from other subjects. It relies purely on memory and the expansion of knowledge. We must spend time and effort to connect the knowledge in the textbooks and mark the key points in combination with previous large-scale exams. Then sell it to those students who want to get high scores in the history of magic but sleep in class. They pay money and we help them save time and improve their grades. Everyone gets what they need, a perfect business. It sounds much more promising than selling playing cards. Sergei nodded. I can join. The three of them discussed enthusiastically, intending to sort out the timeline of the first grade of the history of magic first. At this time, Alan hesitantly said, can you do me a favor? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't dilly-dally. Eddie didn't even raise his head as he listed the precautions for the new business on the parchment. Can the three of you be the taste testers for Bibi multi-flavor beans? Alan looked up at the three of them with some trepidation in his eyes. It means to experience the new flavors that will be launched in advance and then write a taste report for each flavor. Alan squeezed the letter in his hand tightly. Of course, there will be a salary for doing this. The three looked at each other and listened to Alan continue. You will get 5 galleons for each experience report you write. Can you? Alan was very nervous, and the saliva in his mouth kept secreting, urging him to swallow continuously 5 galleons for a report. Joel looked at the letter in his hand with a smile. Who is helping whom? He could naturally see Alan's kindness. This part-time job as a taste tester was probably obtained by Alan and his family begging for favors. But Joel was short of money at the moment, so he silently accepted the favor and agreed. Sergei and Eddie also agreed. The two of them didn't think so much about it, but since Alan asked to help, plus there were free Bibi multi-flavor beans to eat, and they could get an extra salary, they were naturally willing to help. Alan's heart, which had been tightly clenched, finally relaxed. He let out a long breath, and the letter in his hand was stained with sweat. He smiled and said, "Thank you very much. It is us who should thank you." Joel sighed in his heart. Taking advantage of the lighter academic pressure in the past few weeks, they immediately started to make an outline of the history of magic. They went to the library to find various books on the history of magic as supplementary materials. The focus of their first year study was the history of wizards in the Middle Ages, and the timeline was around the establishment of Hogwarts by the 4 giants in 1000 AD. During this period, Hogsmeade Village was also established. It should be very easy to remember it by arranging it according to the time period, but the history of magic textbooks are listed according to the importance of major events that occurred during this period. The establishment of the school by the 4 founders is listed at the beginning, and some trivial matters that happened bore this are arranged at the end. This typesetting method violates the most basic memory rules of people. Joel and his 2 friends combined the history of magic books in the library, shuffled them and arranged them neatly according to the timetable, and then marked and emphasized major events such as the establishment of Hogwarts. For the final exams at Hogwarts, the history of the school is naturally the top priority. At the same time, they were also looking through the final exam papers of each year. It is worth mentioning that, except for the exam papers of the past 50 years, which were not published due to the topic protection strategy, the final exam papers of earlier years were recorded in the library, even including some owl exam questions, which made them overjoyed. Joel suggested that the exercises for the final exams of each year could be placed after the review points, and then the answers and analysis could be written down after searching for information. This innovative idea was unanimously agreed by Sergei and Eddie. However, Madam Pinch sternly told them that these exam papers were not allowed to be taken out of the library, so they had to keep copying them on parchment with a feather pen. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 32, Laughter and Joy. It took the three of them a week of free time just to copy the questions on the test papers. It was not until Sunday night that they rubbed their numb wrists, packed up the parchment, and slipped out of the library under the watchful eyes of Madam Pince. Ouch. I'm so tired. Eddie raised his hands and stretched. Go back and go to bed quickly. I'm so sleepy. Sergei's straight back also bent down, and Joel rubbed his sore shoulders. We will start writing formally tomorrow, and everyone go back and have a good rest tonight. Peeves. Eddie, who was walking in the front, was thrown a big water ball by Peeves, who came out of the corridor. The water in the water ball splashed on his face and dispelled all his sleepiness. A man who looked like a dwarf appeared in front of them. He had black hair, a pair of slightly upturned eyes, a big grinning mouth, and was wearing clown clothes. Woohoo. He held a water ball in one hand and threw it at Sergei and Joel. Peeves' prank is coming. Joel and Sergei fled in a hurry. They often left the library very late in the past 2 days and were caught by Peeves several times. Every time they returned to the dormitory, they were very embarrassed. The confrontation during this period made them understand that ordinary spells would not work on Peeves. The only way to deal with his pranks was to run away quickly. Several people wanted to go back to the library and stay for a while, waiting for Peeves' patience to run out before going back to the dormitory. But as soon as they turned around, they found that Madam Pince had closed the door of the library tightly. It's not even 8 o'clock yet, Eddie said angrily. Peeves obviously also discovered this important news. He took out 2 more water balls in his hand while flying in the air and threw them at them mercilessly. The three of them had no choice but to withstand the water balls thrown by Peeves, quickly run to the stairs, and hurry down. When passing the Great Hall, Peeves finally changed his target, and he ran towards 2 Hufflepuff girls who had just finished their astronomy class with the water balls. Joel and the other 2 finally recovered from the pursuit. Let's see how the parchment is doing, Joel asked anxiously. They had copied the test questions for a week and they couldn't let all their efforts go to waste. 2 or 3 pages are wet. The 3 of them checked together and found that only a few pages were wet by the splashing water, and the rest were protected by the 3 of them intact. Just go back and write. It won't affect normal use. The 3 of them finally calmed down and climbed to the top of the Ravenclaw Tower panting. After answering the door knocker's question, they returned to the warm common room. Many people gathered in the central area to relax and have fun, and more people were studying hard in the self-study area. As Joel said, poker and landlord became popular quickly, but faded even faster. After satisfying their curiosity, the students returned to wizard chess and Quidditch. In their opinion, poker was not very entertaining after all. After the 3 of them said hello to a few familiar people, they returned to the dormitory. Alan was lying on the bed fiddling with something. When he heard the door open, he immediately turned his head and said, "You are back." He waved the candy box in his hand happily. The colorful box that looked like a rainbow was written in cursive on top of it. Bertie Bott's every flavor beans. Bertie Bott's every flavor beans. I brought a box of test products for each of you. After you taste it, just fill in this form. Alan handed the box to them. Wow. Eddie put the box on the table. He had never tasted this snack that was popular in the wizarding world before, and it was very novel at this time. Sergei also looked at the box carefully. Joel took this opportunity to quickly take off his robe and rushed into the bathroom with his toiletries. I'll take a shower first. No one can compete with me. Joel's excited voice came from the bathroom. After washing up, Joel sat on the chair humming a little tune, watching Sergey and Eddie fighting for the bathroom. In the end, Eddie won the battle and ran in with his bathrobe. He placed the wet parchment in front of the window, trying to dry it with the wind, but the owl Bobby glared at his master. It regarded the area in front of the window as its own territory. For this reason, it fought with Sergey's owl Caesar for a week and finally drove away the stupid snowy owl. How could it give up easily? It shook its head in great dissatisfaction, and the feathers on its chest swelled up, and its whole body looked puffy. Joel took out 2 handfuls of owl food from the jar and stuffed them into Bobby's mouth. Bobby struggled twice. This time the problem was very serious, and it couldn't be solved by a few handfuls of owl food. This is my territory, and I will fight for every inch of land. Do you understand? It stared at the owl food in its mouth with wide eyes, but still couldn't resist the temptation of delicious food, and began to chew it. The chicken tasted crispy and much better than the wild mice outside. After a delicious meal, Bobby flapped his wings twice and flew to the owl cage in Joel's bookcase, lying down to take a nap. Joel spread out the parchment paper one by one, then jumped onto the bed. He picked up the box of Pipi multi-flavor beans that Alan gave him, and then glanced at the table. Most of the questions on it were about the saltiness and sweetness of the taste. He opened the box. Under the exquisite packaging box were 18 Pipi multi-flavor beans, which were about the same size as the M&M's chocolate beans that Joel had eaten in his previous life. He carefully picked up one and put it in his mouth. As soon as his teeth bit through the sugar on the outside, the taste inside instantly rushed into his mouth. Joel closed his eyes suddenly. Ahem. Why is it mustard flavored? He ran down and picked up the water cup and poured it into his mouth. Mustard flavor is good, Alan said with a smile, while reading a potion book, not even looking up. I've also tried Budja flavor. The box I gave Eddie has this flavor, and this time my grandfather innovatively added jalapenos. Sergey laughed when he heard this, shocking Joel and Alan. They had never seen Sergey laugh in such a long time in the dormitory. At this time, Eddie came out of the bathroom and saw the 3 people in the dormitory laughing. What are you laughing at? He was confused. Nothing. Alan covered his mouth and shook his head. Sergey held back his laughter, his mouth twitching, and he pushed Eddie aside to walk into the bathroom. He closed the door and started to take a shower. What's wrong? Eddie always felt something was wrong, but Joel and Alan refused to tell him, no matter how he asked, so he could only lie on the bed with some doubts. After turning off the lights, Eddie tossed and turned in bed. His originally very tired brain was unusually excited at this time. If he didn't figure this out, he probably wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. Are you guys asleep? No one responded. What were you laughing about when I came out of the bathroom? Eddie heard the person on the left bed trying to hold back his laughter. Alan. He was furious. Now all 3 people in the dormitory laughed out loud, and the dark dormitory was filled with laughter. Owl Poppy impatiently covered his wings to his ears. These people might be sick. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 33, Side Quests. At the beginning of a new week, Joel and the other 2 were busy making an outline of the history of magic, while Alan was very close to Merita. On the afternoon, when Joel and Sergey went to Nocturne Alley to sell books, Alan and Merita didn't know what they talked about by the Black Lake. But now the 2 of them often get together during class and meals, which surprised the other 3 people in the dormitory. Although they disliked Merita's character of despising the poor and loving the rich, making friends was Alan's own business, and the 3 of them would not interfere. Just when they were busy in the dormitory, Joel suddenly received a system prompt. Host, please complete the side quest as soon as possible, otherwise the system will impose punishment measures according to the failure of the quest. He recalled the quest because he borrowed Haley's good luck, and the system imposed punishment on him. Remove the door handle of Professor McGonagall's office without being discovered. Isn't this a scam? Joel wanted to overturn the table after seeing this quest. It was obvious that the system was deliberately playing a prank on him, but he couldn't fail to complete this quest. The system punished him by saying that whatever food he ate for 7 days tasted like canned herring, which he couldn't stand. There are still 7 days left before the mission deadline, and there is not much time left for him. He tapped the quill on the table with his right hand. Sergey and Eddie were still writing on the parchment. The quill tip and the parchment made a rustling sound. Joel made up his mind to take advantage of the dark night and go to check out the place tonight. The waiting time is always long and tormenting. Joel was thinking about the scouting action tonight all day, and he was a little absent-minded when writing the outline of a history of magic. This led to Sergey finding a lot of mistakes when proofreading Joel's copy at night, and it took Joel a long time to correct them. At 8 o'clock in the evening, when the students finished their evening classes and returned to the common room, Joel found his way out of the dormitory, went out of the tower, entered the auditorium, climbed the stairs, and walked around the second floor. Finally, he found Professor McGonagall's office in a corridor. The door of the office was very small, and Joel's eyes were fixed on the brass door handle on the small wooden door. Is this the goal of his mission? He looked around to see if there was anyone around, so he reached out and touched the doorknob. It was cool and felt very good. He knew it was not made of ordinary brass. There was no one around. Although Professor McGonagall's office and the library were both on the second floor of the castle, the library was at the end of another wide corridor, hundreds of meters away from the office. Most of the students who came out of the library returned to the college common room. Slytherin and Hufflepuff lived underground, while Ravenclaw and Gryffindor rested in the tower. No one would be idle to walk around the corridor on the second floor at 8 o'clock in the evening. The problem now was how to remove the doorknob without letting Professor McGonagall find out who was committing the crime. He had no way to cast a spell now. After curfew, he had no way to avoid Filch and the professors who were patrolling the night. The flow of people in this corridor would only decrease after the library closed at 8 o'clock in the evening, so Joel could only act between the curfew of 8 o'clock and 9:30. And he couldn't let Professor McGonagall stay in the office when committing the crime, otherwise she would definitely find out. Joel once heard Caitlin say that, although Professor McGonagall also has a property in Hogsmeade, she will live in her office after the start of the school year. He sorted out the clues. Now, to remove the door handle of Professor McGonagall's office, there are several conditions. Between 8 PM and 9:30 PM, lead Professor McGonagall out of the office, and then remove the door handle without attracting other people's attention. The most critical point of this plan is how to lead Professor McGonagall out of the office. His eyes wandered on the door handle, and he found an extremely important point that he had overlooked before. Tools for removing the door handle. From the outside of the door, this brass door handle and the wooden door are tightly connected, and there are no screws used in the Muggle world. It is estimated that some magical method is used to stick the two together. Tools. What tools can be used to remove the door handle from the door? Joel kept thinking about this question on the way back to Ravenclaw Tower. This mandatory task does not have any strict requirements for the means of removing the door handle. In other words, it can be removed by brute force. Joel paused while climbing the stairs and quickly called up the system panel. He searched them all and found a golden hammer in a corner. It looked impressive. He quickly checked the details of the hammer. Indestructible hammer. This item is said to be indestructible, but it seems that there is no room for it to be used. Price: 30 points. This item does not require magic, and muggles can also use it freely. System prompt: be careful not to hit your fingers when using it. 30 galleons. Joel was happy and quickened his pace. He came to the eagle-shaped door knocker, answered the questions, pushed open the door, and ran back to the dormitory. Alan and Sergey were playing wizard chess with their legs crossed on the bed, and Eddie was giving instructions on the side. They put piles of parchment aside. "You're back," Eddie greeted. "We have finished our work today," Sergey said. "We are bored, so we might as well play 2 games of wizard chess to exercise our brains." Joel came over and looked at the chess game for a while before giving up. He didn't understand it very well. He simply went to take a shower. He was still looking forward to exchanging the sledgehammer. In the bathroom, with the sound of the water splashing, Joel recited the Pipi Shrimp Crypt and Gold system is the most invincible and most useful in the universe, and recharged 30 galleons into the system. He sped up the shower, rinsed his body in a hurry, climbed onto the bed in his pajamas, and wrapped himself in the quilt, curling up like a caterpillar. "Hammer, hammer, here I come." Joel rubbed his fingers and happily exchanged for the indestructible hammer. His hand suddenly sank, and a cold metal object hit his waist. Joel poked his head into the quilt and saw that he was holding a hammer about 20 centimeters long in his hand. It looked plain and unpretentious, without the dazzling golden light in the system mall. What a profiteer, Joel muttered, but the system never admitted that the real thing matched the photo, not to mention that he had nowhere to complain, even if it didn't match. No matter, at least it was a tool to smash the handle. Joel covered his head with the quilt and began to think about how to lure Professor McGonagall out of the mountain. As the night deepened, Joel didn't think of any good ideas, but his eyelids became heavier and he fell asleep with the whispers of his 3 roommates. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 34. The opportunity has come. He had a very magical dream in his sleep. In the dream, he successfully took down the door handle of Professor McGonagall's office, squatted in the corner of the corridor, and couldn't stop laughing at the furious Professor McGonagall. He was so happy that Joel in reality couldn't help laughing. But when he opened his eyes and the dazzling sunlight shone on his face, no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't remember how he got Professor McGonagall to leave his office. He knocked his head in frustration and sighed. He comforted himself that he might not have led Professor McGonagall out of the office in his dream. Everything was imagined to satisfy his wishes. Joel's talent in transfiguration is not bad. Not as bad as Eddie, but not as outstanding as surgery. The professors at Hogwarts don't pay too much attention to him. The professors have to teach hundreds of students. They will only give extra points to those students who perform well in class, but rarely deduct points from students as long as you don't make trouble in class. But Professor Snape was an exception. He never tired of coming to Joel and staring at the potion in his cauldron and deducting points from Ravenclaw again and again. Fortunately, Joel and Eddie made up for the history of magic this week and earned a lot of points in Professor Binns' class. Although Professor Binns usually didn't like to interact with students in class, he preferred to read the textbook alone without any ups and downs, which was quite similar to the way some professors in Joel's previous life taught in front of Pipi Xie. But Joel and Eddie were proactive. They kept raising their hands in Professor Binns' class to put forward their opinions on the history of magic stories. Professor Binns had to stop and let his stupid brain turn a few more times before he could understand what they said. After repeating it several times, the numb Professor Binns came back to his senses and rewarded Joel and Eddie with several points in every class. Professor Binns liked these 2 students so much that he actually remembered their names because few people would listen to every class of his seriously. Even the current headmaster Dumbledore slept in his class. Thanks to the extra points in the history of magic class, Prefect Catelyn did not bother them during this period. Joel and his 3 roommates packed their backpacks, went downstairs for breakfast, and came to the transfiguration classroom. Their task today was still to turn the matches into silver needles. For students who made fast progress, Professor McGonagall also wrote a conversion spell on the blackboard, asking them to change the silver needles back according to the conversion spell. Joel was just filling in the gap among the students. He kept knocking matches with his wand in his hand, but he was thinking about how to remove the door handle of Professor McGonagall's office. Eddie was also waving his wand absent-mindedly, muttering the transfiguration spell in his mouth, and he was thinking about how to sell the outline of a history of magic. But he was different from Joel. Joel was just knocking matches without applying magic. Eddie, a rough boy, had magic that would come out of his body if he didn't control it properly. Just when he was stunned, he lost his attention and swung his wand in the air. A big hammer fell from the sky and hit Eddie's hand directly. Ouch. Eddie screamed. The hammer in front of him seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds, and he felt that his hand bones were about to break. Professor McGonagall turned around quickly after hearing the sound. After seeing Eddie's miserable condition, she gently waved her wand, and the big hammer flew off the back of Eddie's hand into the air, and then hit the empty space next to the podium, making a dull sound. How many times have I stressed this before? Professor McGonagall said angrily. Concentrate, concentrate. This is the price you pay for not concentrating when using the transfiguration spell. Professor McGonagall grabbed Eddie like a chicken. The wand will drain the magic power in your body, and then all kinds of unpredictable consequences will occur. Remember this lesson, Mr. Carmichael. Professor McGonagall took him to the infirmary. Fortunately, your magic power is not strong. Otherwise your right hand would have been scrapped by this hammer. Although Eddie didn't like what Professor McGonagall said, he couldn't think about these things now. The bones of his right hand had collapsed, and it seemed that the bones were smashed into powder, while his index finger and thumb were still gently holding the wand. The thing that scared him the most was that his right hand had completely lost consciousness. The tears in his eyes quickly gathered, and it seemed that he would cry in the next second. Professor McGonagall glanced at him, pursed her lips tightly, and said nothing. The Transfiguration classroom was already in chaos. It was the first time that students had encountered such an accident in a month since the start of school. Compared to Eddie's shattered hand bones, the exploding cauldron and the potion class was nothing. That was such a miserable sight. Tut tut tut. Several Slytherin students were whispering. The students of Ravenclaw were panicking. Many female students were frightened by Eddie's miserable condition, and their eyes were filled with tears. Sergi, will Eddie be okay? Alan was very worried. Don't worry, Sergi and Alan had just sat next to Eddie and saw his injuries clearly. It's just a broken hand bone. It's not a problem for Madame Pomfrey in the medical wing. Joel was sitting in the last row of the classroom, looking at the messy classroom, and had an idea in his mind. His hammer was still in his backpack. Joel realized that he had overlooked one thing before. Not only was there no one in the corridor on the second floor after the library closed, but now that the students were in class, there would be no one in the corridor on the second floor. This seemed to be a great opportunity, and he didn't have to wait until the evening to do it. As soon as he said it, Joel grabbed his backpack and quietly slipped out of the back door of the classroom. After leaving the Transfiguration classroom, he rushed directly to the corridor on the second floor and ran all the way along the corridor. The corridor was empty. Students were either in class or catching up on sleep in the dormitory. Joel made sure that no one discovered him along the way and successfully arrived in front of Professor McGonagall's office. He took out an indestructible sledgehammer from his backpack and smashed the door handle. 80, 80, 80. With each hammer strike, Joel roared in his heart, and the sound of the hammer and the door handle colliding with each other spread throughout the corridor. The brass door handle was extremely tough. Joel hit it hard a few times, but only slightly deformed it. This won't work. Joel was a little impatient. The sound of the hammer meant that he would never have much time left. Filch and other professors would arrive soon. If he couldn't break the handle, he would just smash the door. He turned the hammer in his hand sideways and smashed it on the wooden door. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Good Brothers. Professor McGonagall obviously didn't expect someone to smash the door of her office. The wooden door was just an ordinary structure. After being hit twice by the indestructible hammer, a gap appeared. Joel was overjoyed and hurried forward to aim the hammer at the gap and chopped it down hard. With a loud bang, a piece of wood fell to the ground together with the brass door handle. Joel quickly picked it up, put the hammer and the door handle into his bag, and then ran downstairs on tiptoe. When I returned to the Transfiguration classroom on the first floor, Professor McGonagall had not returned yet. It was estimated that Eddie was seriously injured. Good brother, I will definitely bring more gifts to visit you when I come back. In the messy classroom, Joel, who was sitting in the last row, did not find that he had ever left. Professor McGonagall returned to the classroom 5 minutes later, and Eddie did not follow behind him. It was probably because of the serious injury that he had to stay in the medical wing for a while. From her expression, it was obvious that she was not aware that a hole had been smashed in the door of her office. Focus, students, she pursed her lips. I don't want this to happen again to Mr. Carmichael. Filch suddenly limped over with his cane. McGonagall, Professor McGonagall. What's wrong, Mr. Filch? Professor McGonagall said unhappily. You should know that I'm in class now. Filch nodded, then patted his chest with his dry palm. Someone smashed a hole in your office door. Professor McGonagall was stunned. The students in the classroom were whispering, and even the Slytherin students were very interested in this matter. Joel calmed his breath. He had never done such a thing in his 2 lives, and he couldn't help feeling guilty at this time. Argus, have you found out who did it? Professor McGonagall walked towards Filch with her chin up. Although Joel was sure that he didn't see anyone when he took action, he still felt nervous when he heard Professor McGonagall's words. Filch shook his head. I didn't see anyone when I heard the noise and rushed to the scene. I suspect it was Peeves who did it. Professor McGonagall said nothing more. She believed that it was definitely not Peeves who did it. Professor McGonagall had worked at Hogwarts for decades and knew Peeves' character very well. He always bullied students and didn't dare to play pranks on professors. Moreover, she and Peeves had no grudges in the past or in the present, so why did he smash the door of her office? She snorted with a gloomy face. Today's class was really full of troubles. Everyone, please put down your wands first. Professor McGonagall wanted to go back to the office to see if there was any important information missing. After what happened to Eddie today, she didn't dare to let these students practice on their own. For the rest of this class, you should preview the knowledge of transformation spells in the textbook. Leave the classroom on your own after the bell rings. I want to receive a paper from you on the object transformation spell in class next Tuesday. The length must be no less than 12 inches. After saying this, Professor McGonagall strode out of the classroom. Filch shook his head and left with his crutches. The 2 of them didn't know that the culprit who smashed the door of Professor McGonagall's office was sitting in the classroom. When Joel and others finished the morning class and returned to Ravenclaw Tower, he finally received a system notification that this side quest was successfully completed, which also meant that Professor McGonagall did not find the culprit of this incident. He breathed a sigh of relief. While his roommate was leaving the dormitory, he hid the wooden board with the brass door handle and the hammer in the suitcase under the bed. After repeatedly ensuring that no one would find these objects, he was relieved. A system reward appeared. Congratulations to the host for successfully completing the side quest, and get the reward. Human Transfiguration, Elementary, Progress 50%. Summoning, Elementary, Progress 50%. Animagus, Elementary, Progress 50%. All are branches of Transfiguration, overlapping with Professor McGonagall's subjects. The next morning, he found that most of the students at the Gryffindor table had gloomy faces, and they actually sat in their chairs and ate their breakfast without the usual laughter. What's wrong? Alan felt uncomfortable. Not only him, but also the students from the other 3 colleges at the long table. They were used to the noise of Gryffindor, and it was hard to swallow the food without hearing their laughter. Professor McGonagall went to the Gryffindor common room yesterday. Penelope, a 4th year student, walked over to them and sat down. She thought it was some troublemaker from Gryffindor who broke her office door. She also warned them that, if they had any personal opinions about her, they were welcome to come and talk to her in detail, and not to do anything shameful behind her back to affect her normal work. Senior Penelope, how do you know so much? QIU asked curiously. Percy Weasley from Gryffindor told me. Penelope forked a sausage from the table. He suspected that his twin brother did it. One person is responsible for attracting attention in front of everyone, and the other person takes the opportunity to act. Penelope shrugged. Percy said that the 2 of them often use this trick to tease their brothers and sisters at home. Joel was stunned, and he saw Percy's imagination. The Weasley twins really had something to do with themselves this time. He didn't dare to say much, and quickly ate 2 mouthfuls of rice, and ran to the library with Sergei to continue sorting out the materials. Eddie was injured and admitted to the medical wing, so the 2 of them had to increase their workload. Both of them were very serious about work, and knew that time is money. The sooner this outline of a history of magic was completed, the sooner they could make a profit. Sergei, look at this place. Joel found a place in a pile of magic history books that was slightly different from the one written by Bathilda Bagshot. After the establishment of Hogwarts, the differences between the 4 founders became increasingly greater, and they had completely different views on whether to recruit Muggle students. Salazar Slytherin even built a secret chamber under the castle of Hogwarts to purify the Muggle bloodline among the students. Joel tapped on a pile of magic history books written by other authors. This item is not written in any of these books. Sergei exclaimed softly, and took the 2 books on the history of magic. He frowned and looked at them for a long time, and finally shook his head and gave up the question. We should still focus on the one, written by Ms. Bathilda Bagshot. Our previous approach was a bit inappropriate. These magic history books are just for us to expand our knowledge. The exams will not be based on these books. We have spent too much time on these irrelevant books. Joel shook his head, pulled over the parchment, and began to make changes on it, thinking that the authors had forgotten this item. He had read the original work, and of course he knew the existence of a secret chamber, and that there was a basilisk locked inside. Do you believe there is a secret room under the castle? Joel suddenly asked. So what? Sergei shrugged and sneered. It's been 900 years. Even if there are monsters in the secret room, they should have starved to death. Do you believe that anything can survive for 900 years? Please vote for me. Chapter 36. The opportunity to make big money is right in front of you. Of course I believe it. It's still a basilisk, the kind that can glare at people. Joel naturally wouldn't say this out loud. He and Sergei worked in the library for a whole morning and finally sorted out the history of the founding of Hogwarts. After each event that happened in Hogwarts Castle, they marked the major events that happened in the British and even European wizarding worlds in the same year. Unlike the magic history textbook written by Ms. Bathilda Bagshot, the outline proposed by Joel very intuitively shows the trend of the entire wizarding world 900 years ago. After all, the establishment of Hogwarts is inseparable from the continuous turmoil in the European wizarding world. The two are closely related and interdependent. Joel makes good use of the overall historical perspective to link various events that occurred in the same period together and discover their internal laws and inevitability. At noon, they returned to the auditorium for lunch. They rushed to the medical wing with Alan, holding a few fried chicken legs taken from the long table of the college. The hospital wing is located on the side of Hogwarts Castle near the West Tower. It is usually deserted. Joel and the other two walked through the empty corridor and came to the door of the hospital wing and knocked gently. After a while, a woman opened the door. She looked to be in her 40s, with a kind face and a slightly fat body. Madam Pomfrey, we are here to visit Eddie Carmichael. Joel said. Oh, the poor child with a broken hand. Madam Pomfrey looked sad. She turned around and led the three people into the hospital wing. As soon as Joel entered the door, he saw 20 beds neatly arranged in the spacious space of the hospital wing. The white sheets were particularly dazzling under the sunlight outside the window. Eddie leaned against the head of the bed, his right hand hanging on his chest by the bandage on his neck, and his left hand was holding a red apple and biting it, and he lowered his head to read a copy of Witch Weekly. Eddie. Alan grinned as soon as he saw him. Look what we brought you. Eddie raised his head when he heard the voice and saw his three roommates holding several oil paper bags in their hands. They said with a sad face, I missed you so much. As he spoke, he put down the apple in his hand and used his left hand to take out the paper bags in the hands of the three people. You don't know how sad I was when I fell asleep alone in this huge room last night. He took Alan's paper bag and tore it open. The aroma of fried chicken legs filled the medical wing. His face changed at the speed of light, from gloomy to sunny. He couldn't wait to grab a chicken leg and put it in his mouth, then squinted his eyes in enjoyment. He won't be discharged until this Friday. I told your dean that he will miss all classes this week. Madam Pomfrey said, don't visit for too long. The patient needs plenty of rest. After saying this, Madam Pomfrey went to the office behind the bed and left this space to the students. I'm so sorry, my right hand happened to be injured this time, and I didn't manage to organize the history of magic outline at all, Eddie said unclearly with the chicken leg in his mouth. Logically, my share of the profits should be reduced. Joel and Sergei looked at each other and shook their heads. The rest of the outline preparation work will be done by the two of us. You should wait until your hand is healed before doing the sales outline job. How about each of the three of us taking 30% of the profits, and the remaining 10% will be used as startup capital for future business. Eddie and Sergei agreed with Joel's suggestion. Take the history of magic outline for example. They used parchment, ink, and quill pens purchased by the three themselves, and the cost of materials was difficult to estimate. Now they would set aside 10% of the profits, and if they had any expenses, they could just withdraw them directly from it. Do you have any magazines in your dormitory? Eddie picked up another chicken leg. I was so bored last night that I could only borrow Madame Pomfrey's Witch Weekly to read. There are only 2 copies in her office, and I'm already reading it for the second time, Eddie said with a bitter face. I think it's too boring to stay here for 2 more days. There are no magazines, but we brought you some Bibi multi-flavor beans. Joel took out Eddie's box of Bibi multi-flavor beans from his pocket and handed it to him. You can try new flavors in the next 2 days, which will definitely subvert your imagination. Really? Eddie ate the chicken leg excitedly, took the candy box, opened it, and put a candy bean in it. As soon as the candy entered his mouth, Eddie closed his eyes and coughed repeatedly. What is this taste? It's smelly and spicy. Joel didn't expect Eddie to be so unlucky. The first one tasted what Alan called Budger plus jalapeno flavor. Just thinking about it made Joel shudder. This is not much better than canned herrings. Alan laughed, and Sergey and he both smiled slightly. Ahem. Eddie closed his eyes and couldn't stop his tears from flowing down. He was obviously choked. He quickly picked up the cup of water on the cabinet and took a sip. Are you guys deliberately messing with me? How is that possible? Alan retorted. We don't know what flavor each of the Beverly flavor beans is. But Alan couldn't control the corners of his mouth that were still rising, which made Eddie confirm his guess and rushed over to make a mess with Alan. They didn't stop until Madame Pomfrey came out of the office. Joel and Sergey spent the next time in the library. The part about the history of Hogwarts was sorted out, but the first year exam also included the establishment of Hogsmeade Village. They had to search back and forth in the library to sort it out. Fortunately, the first year course pressure was not great. It took another 10 days, and they finally sorted out a 100-page review outline for the history of magic. The key theories and analysis of the must-test points took up 20 pages. They also expanded a lot of knowledge in it to make it easier for others to understand this historical knowledge. The remaining 80 pages were questions they found in various final exams in the library. They also sorted out the answers and analysis behind the questions. Joel deliberately asked Alan to read it once to ensure that he could easily accept the knowledge in the outline without listening to 2 classes of magic history. This outline was officially completed. I have a question. Alan patted the pile of parchment Joel handed him. Are you only going to spread this information in school? You mean? Joel reacted. We will first try to sell it in Hogwarts. As long as we win the favor of students. Alan learned business knowledge from elementary school to adulthood. These materials can be printed by a publishing company. Flourish and Blots will be happy to buy this batch of books. They are the largest booksellers in the UK, and the profit is not small. Alan's words were very attractive to Joel. He was very short of money. Chapter 37. Open a single chapter. Please recommend, collect, and invest. The rules are simple. 100 recommendation votes plus 1 update, 200 collections plus 1 update, 10 investments plus 1 update. Statistics are collected every Friday. PS. The additional updates will be added after the book is put on the shelves. If nothing unexpected happens, it will still be 4,000 words a day during the new book period. Chapter 38. New plan. We want to do something big. Then we can't just make an outline for the first year history of magic. Joel quickly found the more important point. We have to make it for the other 4 grades as well. It will be more popular if it's made into a series of books. As long as they buy the first book and benefit a lot, they will buy the second and third books. Joel paced back and forth in the dormitory, looking excited. Sergey shrugged his shoulders. Then let's keep the first year history of magic outline we made and not send it out. Send it, Joel said, but we have to speed up and sort out all the history of magic outlines before OWL. After the OWL exam, Hogwarts no longer has restrictions on compulsory subjects. Most students will not continue to take history of magic in grades 6 and 7. No students take this course, which means there is no market. Eddie also rushed back from the common room, took the outline of the history of magic and read it twice. No problem. I think those lazy students will definitely like this outline. The prices, 1 galleon. How about it? Joel thought for a while. Do you think it's reasonable? Almost. Even books like Magic Theory sell for 2 galleons, and Advanced Potion Making sells for 9 galleons per copy. It's not expensive for us to buy 1 galleon. Eddie is very sensitive to prices. After coming to the magic world for more than a month, Joel found that the books here are sold at an extremely high price. The monthly income of ordinary wizards in the magic world is only about 50 galleons, but a set of spell books, ranging from 3 to 7 books, is priced at 20 galleons, which is equivalent to 40% of a wizard's income. It's ridiculously expensive. Compared with those books, the outline of a history of magic for 1 galleon is still cost effective. As long as you pay 1 galleon, you can get a decent score in the history of magic this year, and you don't have to endure the scolding of your parents. Just thinking about it makes me feel that it's a great deal. Later, Joel asked Poppy the Owl to take his list of items to the Swift Book stationery store in Diagon Alley to buy several automatic writing quills. The copying charm does not work for these books. The copying charm is essentially to use magic to create an identical clone of the original object, but this spell cannot be used on food, money, and living things. In Joel's understanding, it is more like a disguise. It only uses magic to create the appearance of the object, and it will turn into nothingness after the magic dissipates. When Sergei made the instructions for playing landlord before, these instructions could only be preserved for 3 days. After the magic disappeared, the instructions would also disappear. If books can be copied with the copying charm, then why do they need to buy textbooks? And they don't even need to work for printing companies in the magic world. They don't have contact with the printing company now, so they can only use the simplest method, recopying 1 letter at a time with an automatic writing quill. This automatic writing quill costs 2 sickles each, and the quality is not high. There will be many typists while writing, and they have to proofread carefully. Sergei took on this task because he couldn't organize the outline as fast as Joel. In this text-oriented task, Joel made full use of his learning experience in his previous life and had clearer ideas. 3 days later, Eddie left the dormitory with the 10 history of magic outlines that he had made in advance. Not long after he arrived at the common room, he sold 8 of them. Each of the 8 female freshmen from Ravenclaw took one. They were not stupid and could see how valuable this 100-page booklet was. As long as you spend 1 galleon to buy this booklet, memorize the key concepts, and complete the previous year's exercises at the back, you can get an E. Exceeds expectations grade at the minimum. Isn't it great? Most Ravenclaws care about grades. They don't really love a certain subject, but they just don't want to fall behind. Many senior students asked excitedly if there were any outlines for the history of magic for higher grades. After seeing this outline, Eddie agreed to all of them and lied to the public that Joel and Sergei had already prepared the sample and were waiting to copy a few more copies before selling them to them. In an hour, all 10 outlines were sold out, which made Joel and the other 2 even happier. Alan offered to help them find a printing factory and wrote a letter overnight. With the help of Alan's grandfather's relationship, they found the obscurest printing company as their printing company. They made an appointment with the printing company to meet on Saturday. This time, Joel and the other 4 left the castle through the one-eyed witch passage, arrived at Hogsmeade, and took the night bus to Diagon Alley. After a bumpy ride, they arrived at number 18A on the south side of Diagon Alley 10 minutes later. A fat man who looked like a walrus received them. After seeing the sample provided by Joel and the others, he gladly accepted the business. We charge 1 sickle for each book if we print 300 copies at a time, and 25 copper nuts for each book if we print more than 500 copies. The fat man's voice was like a bell. Is it not possible to print less than 300 copies? Eddie asked. The fat man hesitated and said, in a difficult situation, you know, if the printing volume is too small, it will be difficult for us to even recover the cost, and we will have to charge a higher fee. There are not many first-year students in Hogwarts. More than 60 people cannot digest such a huge printing volume, and the outlines of the history of magic for the remaining 4 grades are even more distant. Have you ever thought about spreading this book to other countries? The fat man helped them think of an idea. There are indeed too few wizards in Britain. Joel's brain turned rapidly. The early stage of this outline of the history of magic focused on the founding process of Hogwarts, and of course there was also a part of the content of European magic history. He could follow suit and make outlines of the history of magic for the other 2 magic schools in Europe, Durmstrang and Bogsbuttons. But there was a very realistic problem in front of him. Although some books in the Hogwarts library involved the founding history of the two schools, there were definitely no magic history exam questions for these two schools. If there are only key concepts, but no simulation exercises, the effect of the review outline of the history of magic will definitely be greatly reduced. They rushed here with hope, but reality gave them a blow. Joel took a deep breath, and an idea flashed through his mind. He whispered his plan in Sergio's ear. It seems to be feasible. Sergio thought for a moment and nodded. They left the Obscurus printing company on the pretext of going back to think about it seriously, and came to the street of Diagon Alley. What did you just say to Sergio? Alan was a little curious. Next, we still need your help. Joel stepped forward and grabbed Alan's robe, his eyes sincere. Alan didn't understand, and Eddie on the side was also confused. We not only have to make a review outline for the history of magic, but also outlines for other subjects. To dominate the teaching supplementary book market of Hogwarts, it's time to show your talent for potions, Alan. Joel said his plan. Chapter 39, CLBT. We can make review materials for all the first year courses. Seeing that Alan and Eddie hadn't reacted yet, Joel continued. Sergi is good at transfiguration and spells. Alan is good at potions. I can write about herbal medicine, and Eddie can draw astronomical star maps. We will produce them in batches, combining the areas that each of us is good at, and then find the Obscurus book company to print and market them. Eddie proposed this suggestion at the beginning. I thought the time was not right before, but now it seems that I have to complete this plan. Eddie's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he was eager to act. In his opinion, Joel's plan was perfect, combining the strengths of everyone and having a certain degree of feasibility. But Alan frowned. Will the students believe in our abilities? We are only in the first grade. We don't need to sell directly to students. Joel came up with a method. The four of us will come up with an organization name, and then use this organization as the author, and simply let the market decide the quality of our teaching materials. We will tentatively publish teaching materials for one grade every year, Eddie said, and began to imagine the future. After 7 years, we will all be rich when we graduate. Joel doesn't have the patience to make money from teaching materials for 7 years. This is too time consuming for him. He still has a lot of good ideas in his mind that have not been realized yet. Alan blinked and agreed to Joel's proposal. He is not short of money, but he lacks friends. Then should we think of a name now? Eddie was a little excited. Do you have any good ideas? No one spoke. Eddie continued to cheer himself up. How about calling it the Four Geniuses of Ravenclaw? What about the Four Musketeers of Ravenclaw? No one paid attention to Eddie. Why not call it CLBT? Alan came up with an idea. It's the first letter of each of our surnames. When Joel heard these 4 letters, the first thing that came to his mind was Transistor. All 4 of them were bad at naming. After discussing for a long time, they still couldn't come up with a satisfactory name, so they had to adopt Alan's suggestion. After returning to Hogwarts, CLBT began to work overtime to organize the outline. Joel's suggestions for revising the outline always made his room at size light up. Thanks to the influence of the exam-oriented education in his previous life, he was familiar with the teaching materials of the series such as Qiixin, Wang Haoxing, Zhu Jinxing, Rang Diji, etc. In comparison, the teaching materials industry in the UK was simply a desert, not to mention the magic world with a small population and scarce materials. Under Joel's guidance, everyone's progress was rapid, with Eddie and Joel being the fastest, while Alan and Sergi were a few points slower. It's not that Alan and Sergi are so great. They are already ahead in their respective fields. The first grade textbooks are not difficult for them. However, they often go beyond the outline when writing the answers to the test questions. In order to make the answers and explanations understandable to ordinary students with average learning progress, they must stop and ponder from time to time. It is not easy to limit their knowledge level to the first grade level. It is like a college student who has learned systematic calculus knowledge and then looks back at high school math problems. It is generally difficult to adapt. At the beginning of December, they finally sorted out the outlines of charms, potions, transfiguration, herbology, history of magic, and astronomy. They first went to Flourish and Blott's bookstore with the sample books. The bookstore manager found that the 6 books brought by the 4 children were of a type that had never appeared on the market and couldn't help but study them carefully. When seeing the previous year's real questions after the supplementary materials of the history of magic, the bookstore manager determined that this book would definitely be popular in Hogwarts and made a purchase request to them. The 4 of them decided to directly commission the Omnis Printing Company to print 50 copies of each outline, which was exactly 300 books. The 300 sickles of printing fee was shared by Sergi and Joel and returned to the 2 after the book sales revenue was generated. The 300 books were all eaten by the bookstore manager, who paid them at the price of 1 galleon and 5 sickles per book. After careful discussion, the bookstore manager decided to release this set of books at the price of 2 galleons per book before the Christmas holiday. They also gave this set of books a name, CLBT Magic Course Complete Solution. Joel and the other 4 made a lot of money. This time, they earned a total of 300 galleons and 1,500 sickles. After deducting the 300 sickles of printing fee and the previous automatic writing feather pen fee, they made a profit of 300 galleons and 1,190 sickles, equivalent to 370 galleons. Each CLBT member received 25% of the revenue, which means that Joel received a total of 92.5 galleons. It was a considerable amount of money, and more importantly, it was only the first batch of income. Their goal is currently only to focus on the students of Hogwarts. According to the manager of Flourish and Blots, if this batch of supplementary teaching materials is popular among the students of Hogwarts, they can even be printed and exported to the United States and other European countries to develop the market. This ambitious goal is very feasible. Except for the different teaching of magic history in different countries, the education order of other subjects in different countries is roughly the same. After all, it is a basic education that has continued for hundreds of years. Magic schools are very clear about what knowledge is easy to understand. These magic course solutions can be landed in those countries with a little localization. On December 10th, Flourish and Blots posted a large sign at the door of the store to promote the first year supplementary teaching materials of CLBT. Supplementary teaching materials? The 2 ladies walked side by side on the wide avenue of Diagon Alley. They were both from pure blood families. This time they came to Diagon Alley to prepare for the upcoming Christmas. They planned to buy some Christmas tree decorations and other items to decorate their homes. What is that? The 2 ladies looked at each other, and curiosity drove them into the crowded Flourish and Blots. Are there any more books on spells? A clerk standing at the door shouted into the house. The entire Flourish and Blots bookstore was packed. Some parents of first year students were shopping, and many people came here purely out of curiosity. Hey, this book looks interesting. The lady picked up a copy of Herbology and opened it. What caught her eyes were pictures of herbs. The characteristics and functions of the herbs were written under each picture. Spirit soothing flower, silverleaf grass. The 2 of them flipped through the pages. They were very familiar with herbs. After all, their family relied on growing herbs for a living. In the second half of Herbology, there were exercises. Many illustrations were summarized together. Below the illustrations was a row of herbal names. This was a connection exercise, connecting the herbal pictures with their corresponding names. The 2 looked at each other and felt like they were back in their youth at Hogwarts. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 40, The Ministry's Request. The 2 of them smiled as they recalled the 7 years they had spent in Hogwarts Castle, when they and their friends ran quickly in the grass under the sun, with their school robes slightly raised, and their faces filled with youthful smiles. They had known each other since school and became friends. After graduation, they both married into pure blood families. After giving birth to their children, the trivialities of life gradually smoothed the corners of their mouths. Despite careful maintenance, the fine wrinkles at the corners of their eyes still revealed that they were already quite old. They were very curious about this set of teaching materials and planned to buy a set for their 2 children who were just in the 1st grade and had no interest in herbology. Hello, how much is this book? The lady stopped a clerk. 2 galleons a copy, the clerk said without even looking up, and piled a stack of astronomy course solutions in his hand at the door of the store. If you want it, you have to buy it quickly. I estimate it will be out of stock tomorrow. When the two heard this, they looked at the people in the bookstore and quickly found the course solutions for each subject, took out their pearl bags, and went to the counter to pay. There are more parents who plan to buy a complete set of course solutions for their children. Who doesn't want their children to do better in their studies? The supplementary teaching materials produced by CLBT obviously broke their cognition. Everyone originally thought that the courses in magic schools only needed textbooks, and they never thought that there would be tutoring materials outside of class. Parents also graduated from Hogwarts and entered the society. Although most of the knowledge learned in school was returned to the teachers, they can still see the excellence of this supplementary teaching material. When they were in school, there were not so many exercises and explanations. The usual homework was a small essay, and they had to cram for the final exam. Now with the complete course solution, children no longer have to be unprepared like they did in the past. They only need to study what they don't know, and their academic performance will certainly improve steadily. 2 galleons can make their children one step ahead, and parents are willing to pay this money. 300 supplementary teaching materials were sold out in one weekend. Not only the parents of first year students bought them, but also many parents of students in their owl and newt years. Many children returned home during the Christmas holidays and just wanted to have fun for a few days, but they found that their parents happily took out a set of tutorial books that they had never seen before and asked them to finish reading them before the exam. The children held the toys in their hands and wanted to cry, but had no tears. Picking up the tutorial books in their hands, they saw 4 big words, CLBT. Which lunatic published this book? The children gritted their teeth, but had no choice but to open the tutorial books and read them. After reading 2 pages, the children found that the key points noted in these tutorial books were very helpful for their studies, especially the analysis of the exercises and the templates of the subjective questions were standardized and detailed. After reading them twice, they felt that they benefited a lot. Jill also specially left 2 sets to send to the Weasley brothers and sisters in the Burrow. During the 2 months they met in Nocturne Alley, they often exchanged letters. Interestingly, Ginny and Ron didn't know that Joel and Sergei were already studying at Hogwarts. This made him look forward to the scene when they met again. After the 300 teaching materials were sold out, the manager of Flourish and Blot's bookstore sent a letter to the 4 of them with the stamp of the Ministry of Magic. After opening it, it turned out to be a copyright certificate with the British Ministry of Magic certification, proving that the copyright of the CLBT Magic course solution sold on the market belonged to the 4 of them. After obtaining the copyright certificate, Flourish and Blot's bookstore sent another order request, and Obscure Printing Company was also happy to do it, and no one thought the money was too much. Everything happened so quickly. During the Christmas holiday at Hogwarts, the manager of Flourish and Blot's bookstore asked the 4 of them to meet. This is Griselda Marchbank of the Ministry of Magic, the director of the Wizard Examination Administration of the Ministry of Magic, and a member of the Wizengamot, the highest court in the British wizarding world. The manager of Flourish and Blot's bookstore introduced the lady sitting next to them. She had grey hair, and looked old and frail, and looked much older than Professor Dumbledore. This is what I told you before, the members of CLBT. Ms. Marchbank showed a surprised expression on her face. She looked at the 4 little people sitting opposite her. Is this the magic course solution you wrote? The 4 looked at each other and nodded. Incredible. Marchbank looked at the 4 children who looked no more than 11 or 12 years old and exclaimed, "How did you come up with this idea?" Alan and the other 2 turned their eyes to Joel. "It's like this. I found that the students at Hogwarts are generally not very interested in the history of magic, but it is a required subject for the OWL exam. I was thinking about how to save students review time and improve their grades." Joel was calm and composed. "This is an extraordinary idea." Ms. Marchbank kept staring at his face. "A very bold attempt. The market has proven that your idea is very successful." The manager of Flourish and Blot said happily that this year, with this set of teaching materials, he can get a lot of year-end bonuses from his boss. "I helped them save time, so I should be paid. This is justified." Joel shrugged. Ms. Marchbank laughed. "Of course, no one will have a problem with gold galleons." Everyone laughed at the same time. "Let's get back to the point. I'm here at the request of the Minister of Magic, Mr. Cornelius Fudge. to discuss something with you," said Ms. Marchbank, crossing her arms. "We plan to modify some of your teaching materials and export them to the United States." "Really?" The four of them were delighted. "You can participate in the modification process, but the Ministry of Magic also has a requirement." Ms. Marchbank restrained her smile. "The Ministry of Magic will take 30% of all overseas income from this magic course. Of course, after this 30% of income is handed over to the Ministry of Magic, we will no longer levy taxes on this set of books." The four looked at each other. 30% of overseas income is not a small number. "Can we discuss it before making a decision?" Joel asked. "No problem." Ms. Marchbank stood up tremblingly. "Tell the manager of Flourish and Blots when you've made up your mind. It's a pleasure to meet the four of you outstanding children today." After Ms. Marchbank left, the manager of Flourish and Blots finally breathed a sigh of relief. "I suggest that the four of you agree to the Ministry of Magic's request. But 30% of the profits is a bit too much." Eddie was a little unhappy. The income from this set of books was originally divided among the four of them, with each of them getting 25%. The intervention of the Ministry of Magic is equivalent to one more person sharing the money. Sergey also showed some dissatisfaction on his face, while Alan and Joel pursed their lips and said nothing. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 41, Teaching. We don't really have much choice, do we? Joel looked up at the manager opposite. The manager smiled helplessly, spread his hands and shrugged. That's right. Actually, you don't have the capital to bargain with the Ministry of Magic. They have more means to cut off the sales of your new book. The overseas copyright value of your book is much higher. After all, the wizard population in other countries is much larger than that in the UK. In fact, the Ministry of Magic's approach has both advantages and disadvantages. Although they take 30% of your profits, you are also tied to them. If necessary, the Ministry of Magic will help you solve all problems encountered in the export process. So we should agree to the Ministry of Magic's request. 30% of the income in exchange for a stable ship doesn't sound so bad. Joel put his hands behind his head. Not to mention that, if we have more business to do in the future, the Ministry of Magic will definitely take good care of us. After listening to Joel and the manager, the unhappy expressions on Sergey and Eddie's faces finally retreated a little. After agreeing to the Ministry of Magic's request, the four of them were not idle during the Christmas holiday. The staff of the Ministry of Magic's Wizard Examination Administration wrote to them every day to communicate what content should be saved and deleted in the Magic Course solution sold overseas. Under the leadership of Ms. Marchbank, these staff began to complete the deletion and supplement of CLBT, synchronizing the content with the textbooks of the exporting countries. During the Christmas holiday, the other three roommates went home, leaving Joel alone in Hogwarts Castle, which was quite free and arbitrary. At this time, there were still 3 days before Christmas. While dealing with the letters from the Wizard Examination Administration, Joel also completed the homework assigned by the professors. He now had nearly 300 galleons in his pocket, and he was getting closer and closer to the 1000 galleons to exchange for the source of magic. Joel was also a little excited. Once the overseas market was opened up, these 1000 galleons would be easily available. I can finally refresh my magic qualifications. The wonderful life of kicking Voldemort and punching Grindelwald is right in front of me. Joel paced in the common room, trying to calm his excitement. The fire in the common room was burning vigorously, and the atmosphere in the room was quiet and beautiful. A girl was lying on the table in the study area, with her head in the book only a palm away. The black hair on both sides of her cheeks fell on the table, blocking her face firmly in the enclosed space, like a protective shell. It was Haley, who did not go home during the Christmas holiday. They were the only two people left in the entire Ravenclaw College. Joel now looked down through the window of the tower. Under the sunlight, it felt like gold galleons were floating on the surface of the Black Lake. He couldn't look anymore, or he would go blind. Joel decisively left the window, but now he was really bored. He shifted his gaze to Haley, and he walked over and sat down beside her. Why didn't you go home for Christmas? He crossed his legs on both sides of the chair, staring at Haley's head. Huh? Haley raised her head, her eyes filled with confusion, and then she realized that Joel was talking to her. No one is home. Haley hesitated for a while before saying, your reading posture is not good for your eyes. Don't you feel uncomfortable reading like this? Joel made small talk. It's okay. I'm used to lying down to read. Hailey lifted the black hair hanging by her ear and whispered, I still owe you a favor. Do you need any help recently? Hailey looked up at Joel with wet eyes. After thinking for a long time, she remembered that she had helped Joel turn the wheel on the parchment before, and he promised to do her a favor. Wasn't it a joke at that time? Hailey felt puzzled when she recalled it. Why did you let me turn the wheel? It was mainly to ask for a good luck and change my luck. Joel scratched his head. To be honest, it was thanks to the wheel that I was able to learn the sticking spell. So you don't have to be embarrassed. Just ask for anything you want. Hailey thought for a long time, but couldn't figure out the necessary connection between the wheel and the sticking spell. Seeing Joel looking bored and unwilling to leave, she felt moved. Do you know how to use the petrification spell? She asked. Professor Flitwick taught me 2 lessons, and I practiced for a long time, but couldn't learn it. Of course. Joel was excited. Take out your wand, and let's practice in the common room. He was quick, and went to the sofa in the central area, to get 2 pieces of parchment. He wrote 2 replies here at noon, and these 2 pieces of parchment were left over. Try it first, and I'll see what's wrong. Hailey nodded, took out her wand, and pointed it at the parchment. Petrification. This girl not only spoke in a low voice, but her voice was trembling when she chanted the spell. A grey light came out from the tip of the wand and hit the parchment, but nothing happened. You don't cast spells like this. Joel walked up to her. You need to use your arm to exert force, concentrate your mind, and chant the spell with a strong voice. Your arm holding the wand should draw a horizontal 5 in the air. Your arm can't be soft. We are just starting to learn spells. It is absolutely impossible for you to cast the petrification spell like this. Oh. Hailey blushed and responded repeatedly, squeezing the wand with her arm, and the joints of her slender fingers were white. It's not the fingers that are weak, it's the arm. Seeing that Hailey hadn't reacted yet, Joel was anxious and pinched Hailey's wrist through the sleeve of his school robe, trying to relax her fingers. But he could still feel the heat from Hailey's slender wrist through the school robe, and Joel's heart beat faster. Then he immediately let go of his hand and coughed twice to cover up his embarrassment. I didn't ask you to squeeze the wand hard, but to wave your arm hard. Hailey's face also turned red, and she lowered her head and responded. She waved her wand again, and Joel finally breathed a sigh of relief. The girl's movements were corrected. At our current level, it's better to chant the spell louder. Joel continued to instruct Hailey. Although his magic power was not very good, his theory and comprehension of spells were much better than his peers, and he was still good at talking about it on paper. Petrificus totalis. Joel demonstrated it to her. Although his voice was immature, it was loud enough. Hailey was startled by his voice and almost dropped the wand in her hand. Petrificus totalis. Under Joel's guidance, Hailey continued to improve her waving movements and chanting tone, and finally successfully cast the first petrification spell before dinner. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42. Busy Christmas. Am I a little stupid? Hailey lowered her head and was a little embarrassed. Joel was stunned for a moment and then shook his hands repeatedly. I'm not. Don't talk nonsense. I don't feel that way. I just think you're a little restrained when casting spells. Then we are even. Hailey raised her head and looked at Joel with her bright eyes. In the eyes of young Hailey, having a child to practice spells with her for an afternoon without complaint is already a friend. Although Joel owed her a favor, in Hailey's eyes, it was just a piece of cake and effortless. What's more, she herself didn't think she really helped Joel much, at least it was incomparable to the spell teaching this afternoon. Joel looked at Hailey's face, the corners of his lips slightly raised, and the black hair on both sides of his cheeks also slightly moved aside, revealing her clean and pretty face. At this moment, Joel felt that a barrier between himself and Hailey was broken, and the vivid image of this girl finally appeared in front of him. I'll do as you say. We're even now. Joel chuckled. After cleaning up the common room, He followed Haley out of the tower to the auditorium for dinner. He looked at Haley's slender back, thinking that he would have to trouble her again. He had to rely on Haley's good luck to extract the source of magic power, even if it meant triggering the system task again. He was extremely eager to have powerful magic. The 4 long tables of the original colleges in the auditorium had been removed, leaving only the teacher's seat at the innermost side of the auditorium. This was the intention of the headmaster Dumbledore, otherwise the students who stayed in the school from various colleges would be too lonely sitting on the empty long table. The students can't go home for Christmas. We have to let them feel the warmth of home. These were the original words. There were a total of 12 students who stayed in school. The students and professors sat together, waiting for Professor Dumbledore's speech. Like other students, Joel looked at the headmaster sitting in the middle of the teacher's seat with expectation. His eyes were not shy. Although he had a lot of secrets in his head and Dumbledore was a master of legilimency in the original book, Joel was sure that he would not easily use such a spell on students. After all, Dumbledore was the headmaster of Hogwarts, and Joel was a student of Hogwarts. Dumbledore wore a red Santa hat with a white edge on the brim and snowflakes dotted on it. He looked at his students and colleagues with a smile on his face. "Christmas is coming soon," he said in a cheerful tone. "It's a pity that you can't reunite with your families for various reasons during this traditional festival, but you can also feel the warmth of home in Hogwarts. Look at the classmates and teachers around you. They are all your family. You will help and support each other and spend an unforgettable 7 years of youth," Dumbledore said, seeming to be moved by himself. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket to wipe the moisture from his eyes. "It's really unforgettable." The students of Slytherin and Gryffindor looked at each other from a distance on both sides of the long table, with malicious smiles on their faces. Joel felt that, if the professors were not there, the people of Gryffindor and Slytherin would fight. In comparison, the students of Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw get along relatively harmoniously, mainly because the students of the two families are not very likely to cause trouble. Professors McGonagall, Snape, Flitwick and White on the long table obviously noticed that the atmosphere between the students was not right, but Professor Dumbledore put away the handkerchief, as if nothing had happened. "Let's not talk too much, let's enjoy the dinner happily." Dumbledore waved his hand, and the white tablecloth was covered with all kinds of food in an instant. Fried chicken legs, roasted chicken legs, braised chicken legs. It was basically the same dishes. Joel was tired of eating them after more than 3 months at Hogwarts. But Haley and others sitting next to him felt that this dinner was unusually rich and kept putting dishes on their plates. Joel made do with 2 fried fish and swallowed them into his stomach before stopping. "You don't have a good appetite today." Haley scooped a spoonful of beans from the plate in front of her, looking at Joel's plate and asked curiously. Joel was about to say something, but he still shook his head when he looked into Haley's eyes, picked up a fried chicken leg, and started to chew it. "Don't just eat meat, this stew is delicious," Haley said hesitantly. Joel couldn't refuse, so he put a spoonful of cream stew in his bowl, and he always felt that it was not good enough when he ate it. He didn't think British food was bad. After all, the house elves in the castle were good cooks, but the taste of the dishes was not to his liking, and the dishes were monotonous and had no variety. "It tastes good. It tastes good." Joel rarely praised British food. Only then did Haley turn her eyes back to her plate. Joel was so uncomfortable eating dinner that he was afraid that Haley's eyes would move to him again and ask him to try some other dishes. After dinner, the professors left first, and then the students of the 4 colleges ignored each other and scattered. Joel found that the conflict between Slytherin and Gryffindor students was already very deep. In fact, the confrontation and struggle after Harry and Malfoy entered school next year would only further expand the conflict between the 2 colleges. He knew that the 2 colleges could not reconcile in a short period of time, and there was a deep prejudice between them. As the saying goes, the prejudice in people's hearts is a mountain. No matter how hard you try, you can't move it. He was not interested in getting involved in the mess between the 2 colleges. He would rather make more money and exchange it for the source of magic power as soon as possible. He stayed in the common room all night, leaning against the fireplace and writing a reply, while Haley was reading the standard spells. Joel felt that the common room was a little warmer than usual. The staff of the Wizard Examination Authority are now working day and night. In this afternoon alone, 4 letters were sent to Joel, with some deletions on them, which made Joel think for a long time before he could give a reply. His reply has always emphasized that the overall idea of the magic course solution cannot be changed, and exercises and explanations must be included. This is an important magic weapon for them to sell well in the UK and the key to occupying the magic teaching materials market around the world. This has led to a sharp increase in Joel's workload. The staff of the Wizard Examination Authority learned the test questions from decades ago from various magic schools / Ministry of Magic through various means. These test questions have lost the need to be kept confidential, and Joel must write out the answers and explanations to these test questions. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 43, Christmas Gift. The busy state lasted until Christmas Eve, when the staff of the Wizard Examination Administration finally had their own holiday, and Joel breathed a sigh of relief. It was not until 11 o'clock in the evening that Joel finished processing the backlog of letters in his hand. He saw the stars outside the window and the fire in the common room burning tirelessly, making people feel warm. And Haley had fallen asleep on the sofa without knowing when. Her soft black hair fell on the sky blue carpet, revealing half of her fair and tender face. Joel had not noticed that this girl had been lying on the sofa. He was quite curious why Haley didn't go back to the dormitory to rest so late. Haley. Joel ran to her side and woke her up. Haley woke up and rubbed her sleepy eyes with her hands. "What time is it?" Her voice was soft and sounded a little delicate. "It's past 11 o'clock. You should go back to bed quickly," Joel urged. Haley rolled around on the sofa for a while before getting up. When she landed, her steps were unsteady and messy. She walked left and right like a penguin, obviously not awake yet. "Good night, Joel." Joel heard a gentle farewell when Haley was about to disappear into the shadows. "Have a good sleep." Joel stretched. Joel had a rare good sleep and woke up at noon the next day. The dazzling sunlight shone through the curtains onto the thick quilt. Joel curled up in the quilt and didn't want to move. He yawned and turned over to continue sleeping. His feet accidentally kicked something hard, and the pain dispelled most of his sleepiness. Joel cursed softly, then buried his head in the quilt, trying to find the culprit who disturbed his sleep. It was a flat box with 2 sky blue ribbons tied together as decoration. Joel was no longer sleepy when he saw this thing. Christmas gift. He lifted the quilt and got out of bed barefoot. He saw a pile of gift boxes beside his bed. He sat cross-legged on a chair and opened all the boxes. All 3 roommates gave gifts. Sergei gave a book called Forgotten Ancient Magic and Spells. The words on the book were very small and arranged closely. You couldn't see them clearly unless you looked closely. Eddie gave 2 large boxes of apple pies. His wizard father used a heat preservation spell, which made the pies still taste perfect when they were delivered to Joel. Alan gave 2 boxes of limited edition candies of Bibby's every flavor beans. The rest were gifts from classmates with whom he had average relationships, such as QIU, Caitlin, the Weasley brothers, and a purple pocket box, which seemed to be signed by Haley. Joel put Haley's box last for no reason. He saw that the gifts given by QIU and other classmates were cheap and stereotyped, which was no different from what Joel imagined. Before Christmas, he also went to Honeydukes to buy a lot of candies, which were specially given to classmates who were not close to him, but couldn't help but give gifts. He opened the pocket box sent by Haley and found a silver brooch inlaid with a sapphire, which looked luxurious and beautiful. "What's going on? This is too expensive, right?" His first reaction when he saw the brooch was uneasiness. You know, what he gave Haley was just a set of magic course instructions and a box of Honeydukes candy. This box of candy was added by Joel because he had a good relationship with Haley in the past 2 days. The price is simply not comparable to this brooch, inlaid with a sapphire. Joel never expected Haley to give such an expensive gift. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. He changed his clothes and took the box out of the dormitory. In the common room, Haley was reading in the study area, her head still close to the book, and her long black hair was combed into a single ponytail, which looked neat and tidy. "Haley." Joel walked over quickly and placed the pocket box in front of her. "This is too expensive. I can't accept it." Huh. Haley looked up at Joel, looking at a loss. "This is a Christmas gift," said Haley, "and it's not expensive." Joel was choked by this. He opened the box and revealed the brooch inside. "Haley, I hope you understand that this is beyond my ability to bear Christmas gifts. I can't give a gift of equal value now. I appreciate your kindness, but you should take the gift back." He pushed the box to Haley. Haley panicked and stood up and waved her hands repeatedly with a bit of uneasiness on her face. Don't be like this. I really treat you as a friend. This is also the gift for QIU. I really don't mean anything else." Haley sobbed, tears almost overflowing from her eyes. The family environment she grew up in made her have no friends of the same age. It was not until she came to Hogwarts to study that she made friends with QIU and Joel. What's more, this brooch is not particularly expensive for Haley. In her eyes, this brooch is just a decoration, at most a little beautiful. After all, her family is very rich, and she has no concept of money since she was a child, nor is she interested in it. Joel sighed, knowing that this girl was from an ordinary family similar to Alan, and money was just a number in her eyes. "Have you opened the gift I gave you?" Haley nodded like a chick pecking at rice, tears flashing in her eyes. "Chocolate is delicious." She sniffed. "I didn't ask about the chocolate. Have you read the book?" Joel asked. Haley nodded. "Give me the book." Joel exhaled, feeling that the girl in front of him was soft and weak, like a snowball. Oh. She walked back to the dormitory in small steps, and soon came out with a complete set of CLBT magic courses. Joel took the book from her hand, opened the title page, and signed his name on it. Haley was stunned. Didn't Joel give her this set of books? Why did he write his name on the book? Joel knew what she was thinking. "My 3 roommates and I are the authors of this book." Huh. Haley was stunned. Eddie Carmichael, C. Sergi Lowe, L. Alan Bott, B. Joel Taylor, T. Joel explained to her, "This book is quite popular, and it will be sold in the United States next year." Wow. Haley looked at Joel with admiration. "I will sign your name on each book." Joel signed the last book with hairless feather pen, and then picked up the whole set of books. "Not only me, but after the vacation, the other 3 people will also sign this set of books, as a souvenir. I know that, even if my name is signed, it won't be worth much, but I always feel uneasy if I don't make up for it." Joel sighed. "You wait here for me. I still have a lot of candy in the dormitory. You can take it back later. Please vote for recommendation." Chapter 44. Fairness and Justice. Professor Snape. Joel gave Haley all the boxes of Honeydukes candies that he had placed in his dormitory. He couldn't give her gifts of equal value, so he could only give Haley all the gifts that he had given her. Haley held a large pile of candy boxes in her hands, covering her little head. Joel sent her back to the girls' dormitory and only felt relieved when he saw her walking back with penguin steps. He returned to the room and opened the pocket box, carefully examining the silver brooch inside. The brooch was in the shape of petals, and a sapphire was inlaid in the middle of the pastel, with delicate and exquisite texture. Joel sighed and put the box away, putting it in the drawer of the desk. The Christmas holiday passed quickly, and Joel spent most of his time catching up on sleep in the dormitory. He used his free time to preview the entire standard spells. When he turned the last page of the spellbook, his 3 roommates also returned to the dormitory. "Joel, I miss you so much." Eddie rushed over when he saw Joel. "Go away, I have something to ask you 3. Joel pushed Eddie away, who was clinging to him like a piece of taffy. "What is it?" Alan was a little curious. Joel took out the complete solution of magic courses. "You 3 sign this set of books. I have to give it to someone." "Who are you giving it to?" Alan came over with a feather pen and signed his name on the title page. Thanks to his good family education, his signature was elegant and graceful. "Giles." Joel didn't hide it. "Giles Selwyn?" Eddie frowned. "When did you get close to her enough to give her a signed book?" "I helped her a little during the Christmas holiday, and we got closer." Joel muttered. "I think she's a pretty good girl." "Wow." Eddie winked. Joel nudged him with his elbow, and Eddie quickly admitted his mistake and squatted down to sign. Sergi took out the books and clothes from his suitcase, and Joel noticed that the ruby inlaid on his suitcase was gone. He looked up at Sergi and found that he looked a little haggard, with very obvious dark circles under his eyes, and his mood was obviously not right. "What's wrong, Sergi?" Joel asked. Did you have a bad Christmas vacation? Sergey looked at him and shook his head. Nothing. His voice was much lower than before. He picked up the feather pen and signed on the title page and then lay down on the bed with his clothes on. What's wrong? Joel frowned and lip synced. Alan and Eddie shrugged their shoulders, obviously unaware of it. When Joel sent the signed magic course to Haley's, Alan and Eddie were already dealing with the letters from the Wizard Examination Administration. When he returned to the dormitory, there were also a pile of letters on his and Sergio's desks. Ms. Marchbank asked us to speed up the progress. The first batch of books will land in North America at the end of January. We don't have much time left, Eddie said in a very helpless tone, but mixed with a lot of joy of harvest. Then let's work harder. The dawn of victory is just around the corner, Joel encouraged. Alan and Eddie thought about the large amount of gold galleons they were about to receive, and they couldn't help but be full of energy. The three of them worked until 11 o'clock in the evening, before they fell asleep. After turning off the lights, Sergey turned over in bed, his bright eyes full of reluctance and regret. After Christmas, most students have not come out of the state of relaxation. Professor Snape is obviously very dissatisfied with their loose state in class. He strictly disciplines students outside Slytherin College, and with a warm and innocent heart, he urges students to make continuous progress with his noble character. The always naughty Gryffindor students were set as examples by the conscientious Professor Snape. They were often punished by the fair Professor Snape for deducting 5 points for slightly louder voices in the corridor. Snape, the old bat, really did everything he could to help Slytherin win the college cup. In the potions class, Eddie huddled next to Joel and muttered unsatisfactorily, staring at Professor Snape, who was watching the Hufflepuff students make a fool of themselves in the first row. Before Christmas, Gryffindor was leading the way in the House Cup score, mainly due to their leading points in Quidditch matches. A victory in a Quidditch match can add 100 points to the house. Under the guidance of Professor Snape, Gryffindor's score dropped by more than 150 points in a week, falling behind Slytherin and Hufflepuff. That's good. Joel looked up at Snape, then quickly lowered his head to deal with his cauldron. Although he couldn't control the magic he injected into the crucible, he could practice more before the magic and potion blended. He has always been a diligent person, and firmly believes that hard work can make up for shortcomings. Ravenclaw will soon become the second to last. Ravenclaw's first Quidditch match was held after Halloween. They lost to Hufflepuff 60:210, and their classroom performance scores are currently ranked last. But if this continues, Slytherin will win the House Cup again this year. Eddie was a little dissatisfied. This has nothing to do with us. Joel didn't care about it. You might as well focus on how to save your cauldron. Joel and Eddie were both bad at potion practice, but they were bad in different ways. Joel had poor control over his own magic power and couldn't fuse potions, while Eddie was a potion genius. The color of the potion in his crucible was never right, and it would release a pungent smell every time, making him a potion killer. Eddie watched his stimulant turn into shit green in the crucible, and he panicked, poking the bottom of the crucible with his wand. Joel knew that something was wrong, and quickly moved his stool aside. With a loud bang, a shit green liquid rushed into the sky, and the hot potion fell, and burned Eddie's skin with blisters one after another, causing him to scream loudly. The students in the basement classroom stopped their work and looked over. Carmichael. Professor Snape strode over with a fierce look, his black robe swinging behind him, really like a big bat. He glanced at Eddie's cauldron and shouted angrily, I specifically reminded you before class that the narcissus roots should be added slowly. Were you playing with the troll while I was teaching? Deduct 10 points from Ravenclaw. Snape ordered Joel. Tyler, send him to the hospital wing. He waved his wand vigorously, and the remaining shit green liquid on the table and in the crucible disappeared. Seeing that Snape did not come to explore his crucible, Joel quickly poured the potion in the crucible into the pool, and then helped Eddie's arm, and slowly walked to the hospital wing. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 45. Exchange the source of magic power. Eddie's first year was full of disasters. He broke his hand in the transfiguration class, and was burned by the potion in the cauldron in the potions class. Because of Eddie's injury, the revision of the CLBT magic course solution had to be temporarily slowed down. In mid-January, they finally reached an agreement with the Wizard Examination Authority and began to print a new version of the CLBT Magic Course solution. The author of this version was the Wizard Examination Authority of the Ministry of Magic of the United Kingdom. The Ministry of Magic of the United Kingdom arranged the distribution of this book. They targeted North America, where there are many wizards, for the first overseas market. The complete set of books is divided into 6 books: Charms, Transfiguration, Potions, Astronomy, Herbology, and History of Magic. Each book is priced at 2 galleons, and the full set of 6 books is priced at 10 galleons. At the end of January, the CLBT Magic Course solution landed in magic bookstores in New York, Los Angeles, Toronto and other cities. This novel teaching material quickly attracted the attention of many students and parents. Like the British buyers, they were also very satisfied with the content of the exercises in the course solution. With this book, my mother no longer has to worry about my studies. A little blonde girl smiled sweetly at the camera of the reporter. I will read the parts I don't understand. This set of books has a very thorough analysis of the teaching materials. I was a little confused about the teaching materials at first, but after reading this set of magic course solutions, all my previous questions have been answered. A boy showed the reporter the complete set of CLBT magic course solutions in his hand. In magic bookstores in 20 major cities in North America, CLBT magic course solutions were sold out within a week, triggering a wave of enthusiasm. Many media rushed to report on it, calling it a fantasy textbook analysis from across the Atlantic. Now Joel and his 4 friends receive a letter from the Wizard Examination Authority every day, which records the sales statistics in North America. The British local newspaper The Daily Prophet is also not idle. On the first day of the magic course solution landing in North America, it published this news on the front page headline, and for a long time afterwards, it reported the popularity of this set of teaching materials overseas from time to time. This is obviously the British Ministry of Magic behind the scenes. This news also catalyzed the sales of the complete solution of magic course in the UK. The popularity of the book overseas moved the parents and students who were still hesitant before. They directly emptied the few stocks in Flourish and Blots. Professor Claire White was a little bit abnormal recently. She often fell into a trance during class and had to be reminded by other students to recover. Even when facing dark magic creatures, this heroic woman was no longer as fierce as before. Eddie's performance in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class was amazing. Although his magic power was mediocre, he performed well in the practical class and received a lot of extra points from Professor White. Joel was more difficult. He had no way to cast spells. Every time he faced dark magic creatures, he could only shrink at the end of the team and watch his classmates and friends in front of him cast spells unscrupulously. However, this period of time will soon end. At the end of February, Joel finally got the first share of the income of the complete solution of magic course overseas, 750 galleons. In 1 month, this set of books sold 3,600 copies worldwide. This number was simply unbelievable for Joel and his 4 friends. You should know that the number of wizards in the whole of Britain is only slightly higher than this number. Adding the gold galleons that Joel had saved before, his savings have successfully exceeded 4 figures. The Wizard Examination Administration used 4 owls to deliver the gold galleons to them. What a huge sum of money. Eddie opened the grey cloth bag brought to them by the owl, which was densely packed with golden coins. His eyes were shining. Alan opened the bag and took a look, then put it away, with no expression on his face. Sergei was no longer calm as before. He poured out all the gold coins in the grey cloth bag and counted the gold coins in his hand over and over again. After counting the number of galleons, Joel couldn't wait to get on the bed. He huddled in the quilt and muttered, the Pipi Shrimp Krypton Gold system is the most invincible and easy to use in the universe, and charged 1,000 galleons into the system. Looking at the points on the system panel, Joel breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly entered the system mall and found the source of magic. The bright red heart kept beating in front of him. Joel swallowed his saliva and then decisively exchanged it with 1,000 points. The source of magic power is now lying in his inventory and beating actively. Joel will soon gain more powerful magic power, walk sideways in the magic world, marry a beautiful and rich woman, and reach the peak of life. Hey, why do I say marry a beautiful and rich woman? The heart in the system panel was swaying in front of Joel. It was 10 o'clock in the evening, but he was not sleepy at all. Not only him, but the other 3 roommates were also very excited. Sergey rarely showed a smile on his face. He sat on the bed with Eddie Allen and played landlord. The whole dormitory was filled with laughter. How about we go to watch the Quidditch game tomorrow? Gryffindor and our college, Eddie said. He happily watched Sergey block his cards with a set of bombs in his backhand, and his face was still smiling. In the past few months, he has also figured it out. His previous performance in Landlord was very childish. It was just winning or losing a game of cards. How can it be as exciting as making money? Even if you lose 100 games of cards, it's not as good as 1 galleon. Aren't we doomed to lose? Alan shrugged. Gryffindor defeated Slytherin, and we can't even beat Hufflepuff. It's just for the sake of novelty, Eddie explained. I've been in the magic world for so long, and I haven't watched a Quidditch match yet. What about you? Sergey and Alan both shook their heads. Joel, Eddie shouted. Why are you yelling so loudly? Joel was startled by his sudden sonic attack, and quickly closed the system panel to divert his attention. Let's go watch the Quidditch game tomorrow. Joel agreed repeatedly. During the last Quidditch game, they were still working overtime to make a complete solution for the magic course. Thinking about it, they had been working continuously for a long time, so it was just right to watch a Quidditch game to relax themselves. The dormitory played until 12 o'clock in the evening, before turning off the lights and going to bed, and slept until 8:30 the next morning. After wandering to the Great Hall for breakfast, the 4 of them followed the crowd to the Quidditch field outside the castle. The match between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw was about to begin. Students from both houses had gathered in their respective stands, with some Slytherin and Hufflepuff students mixed in. Students used their wands to make many banners and decorations to cheer for their own houses, and the scene was very lively. Everyone should be careful recently and be cautious when going out. If you really can't do it, just stay at home and play games and read novels. Chapter 46, Refreshing Magic. The game hadn't started yet, and the students were laughing and making a mess in the stands. Joel took the multi-flavored beans handed to him by Alan and stuffed them into his mouth. It tasted like strawberry, sour and sweet. Joel's eyes were fixed on the black-haired girl in the front row. Haley and Qiu were trying to make a Ravenclaw eagle on the banner. The 2 girls' clear voices, like larks, went straight into his ears, and he felt happy just by listening to them. Haley, can you come out with me for a moment? I have something to tell you. Joel thought for a moment and said, "Hey." Haley was holding a banner in her arms, with a few big words printed on it, Ravenclaw Quidditch will win. She looked up at Joel, put the banner in Qiu's hand, and then jumped out of the crowd. Joel led her away from the Quidditch field and stepped on the grass outside the field. The noise in the field still reached their ears. There was no one around here, so it was a good place to chat. What are you doing? Haley stretched out her fingers to touch the black hair beside her ears and lowered her head to look at her small black leather shoes. Well, I still need to ask you to do me a favor. After all, girls develop earlier. Now Joel and Haley are about the same height. He slightly bent down and looked directly into Haley's clear eyes and asked sincerely, can you give me your hands? Huh. Haley was stunned. She stood there for a while and a blush climbed up her fair cheeks. What do you mean? Let's hold hands together and you just close your eyes and pray silently in your heart for good luck. This is a new way that Joel thought of, which can pass Haley's good luck to himself. After all, even parchment can be used as a carrier, so holding hands can definitely be used. Now think about it, swallowing a piece of parchment and having diarrhea for an afternoon was really a dizzy thing. Haley raised her head to look at Joel, who was serious and didn't seem to be pretending. Her eyes circled around Joel's handsome face for a few circles, and she blushed and handed over her hands. Joel placed his hands on Haley's hands, his eyes still fixed on her. Haley avoided Joel's gaze like a frightened rabbit. Close your eyes. Joel took a deep breath and looked at Haley. Oh. The clumsy girl just remembered and quickly closed her bright eyes. Joel watched her long eyelashes tremble slightly, as soft and light as butterfly wings. There was a beautiful scene in front of him, but he had no intention of appreciating it at this moment. He called out the system panel, and after finding the source of magic, he confirmed it again. Haley, pray for me in your heart. Haley pursed her lips and nodded vigorously. Joel closed his eyes and clicked on the source of magic with his mind. Justice Earthlings, raise your hands. Friends of Hogwarts Castle, friends of the Quidditch field, give me strength. Joel roared loudly in his heart, and the goddess of luck Haley, wish me to draw an excellent magic qualification. The heart representing the source of magic in the system panel was beating non-stop, and golden light was overflowing, occupying the entire system panel. After 5 seconds of anxious waiting, Joel opened his eyes, and the golden light finally dissipated, and a system prompt appeared in front of Joel. He held his breath and read the words on the system prompt. Congratulations on your successful extraction of the source of magic, and your magic qualification exceeds 97.77% of wizards in the world. Do you want to replace this source of magic? It's done. To be honest, this magic qualification is definitely at the top level. Joel used his mind to click the confirm button. Are you okay? Joel was stunned for a second after hearing what Haley said, and quickly let go of her hands. Comfortable. He let out a long breath. After the system prompt disappeared, the source of magic in the inventory disappeared, and was replaced by the surging energy in his body, which was constantly washing his body. His heart beat more strongly, and the magic mixed with blood was transported to his limbs. He now felt full of strength all over his body, and there was a joy of harvest. Joel could feel that this power was much stronger than what he had in his body before. If the magic power in his body before was a stream, then now it was like a rushing river. From this moment on, Joel became really powerful and stepped onto a fast track. He looked at her little face, which was as red as a Fuji apple, and added, "Thank you so much this time. If it weren't for you, I don't know what bad luck I would have. What does this have to do with me?" Haley was confused and frowned slightly with her head tilted. Joel was attracted by her gesture and reached out to rub her head. "Let's go. If you have any questions about magic in the future, just come to me. No matter how difficult or complicated it is, I can solve it." "Are you serious?" Haley shook her head and shook off Joel's hand on her head. Really, Joel was in a good mood at this time, feeling the blue sky and fresh air, and everything in this world was so fresh and beautiful. "I'll protect you. If there is any problem, I'll remember what you said." Haley looked at Joel meaningfully. When the two rushed back to the stands of the stadium, the players of Ravenclaw and Gryffindor just entered the stadium. Haley pulled him and ran back to his seat. The commentator from Hufflepuff was working hard to introduce every player who entered the stadium, especially when Charlie Weasley, the 7th year head of Gryffindor and Quidditch captain, came on the stage. The whole audience burst into warm cheers. In the first game against the Slytherin team, Charlie scored 13 goals alone, breaking Slytherin's defense line into pieces. He was definitely the biggest contributor to defeating Slytherin. He was very popular in Hogwarts. Joel saw that he was very strong, and the whole person seemed to fly out of the entrance of the stadium on a broom. Charlie controlled the broom to circle twice in the air and accepted the cheers of the students present. "I heard that Charlie Weasley is now at the level of a professional Quidditch player, and many English teams have offered him olive branches." Eddie was more interested in Quidditch, and he was responsible for popularizing information about opponents to the Ravenclaws around him. "Then what are we watching?" Sergei was very confused. "The ending is already determined, and the process will definitely not be exciting. Watching Quidditch games is a must-try for every student at Hogwarts." Eddie said excitedly, "My goal for the next school year has been set, which is to join the Ravenclaw Quidditch team and win the Quidditch Cup." "Me too." Qiu Zhang also got excited. "Ravenclaws don't take Quidditch seriously enough." Sergei shrugged his shoulders and didn't comment on their enthusiasm. The players from both sides came to the middle of the court, and under the command of Madame Hooch, the professor of flying classes and the Quidditch referee, they pushed their feet off the ground and controlled their brooms to fly high into the sky. Bludgers, Quaffles and Snitch flew out of the ball boxes on the ground at the same time. Gryffindor won the first ball possession. Led by Charlie, they manipulated the Quaffle towards Ravenclaw's goal. The process was not hurried or slow, and they seemed to be at ease. This victory was very important to them. After defeating Slytherin, this year's Quidditch trophy was within sight. This was Charlie Weasley's last year at Hogwarts, and he hoped to leave some good memories before leaving. On New Year's Eve, Joel also gained his own magic power. I wish all readers good health and success in their careers in the new year. Happy New Year. Chapter 47, Quidditch Match. The Gryffindor Quidditch team with Charlie Weasley was very strong, and the Ravenclaw team was obviously not their opponent. Under the Gryffindor team's unhurried attack, Ravenclaw soon lost its composure, and many students from their own college were extremely anxious and sighed in the stands. Too bad. How could Roger Davis appear in such a place? He should have kept a close eye on Charlie Weasley. Eddie was so anxious that he jumped up and down. Roger Davis was the star player of their college Quidditch team. Although he was only in the 2nd grade, he was proud and thought he had the capital to fight Charlie. This Quidditch game lasted for half an hour, and even Joel, a bull blind, could see that Roger Davis and Charlie Weasley were not comparable at all. In front of the experienced Charlie, Roger Davis was like a child who had not been weaned. His fake moves were seen through by Charlie one by one. So far, he has not been able to complete an effective breakthrough against Charlie, and Charlie Weasley has already scored 50 points on him. Ravenclaw was now trailing 0,80, and a desperate atmosphere filled the Ravenclaw stands. Although the Golden Snitch still had a 150-point bonus, which meant they still had hope of a comeback, no rational Ravenclaw believed that their team could win the Golden Snitch over the powerful Gryffindor team. The gap between their strength and that of their opponents was too large, and the score of 0 even lasted until the end of the game. The 290 points also set the largest score difference in Hogwarts in the past 10 years, which was regarded as a great shame by some of the Ravenclaws who loved Quidditch. We must make the Gryffindors look bad next school year. Eddie clenched his fists in great anger. When leaving the field, the Ravenclaw players were crestfallen, holding their brooms, and their spirits seemed to have been broken by the Gryffindors, which was in sharp contrast to the cheering of the Gryffindors on the other side. If nothing unexpected happened, Gryffindor's Quidditch trophy this year was within reach. Being inferior to others, Joel had to admit defeat. This was Joel's understanding of this Quidditch match. He was not as disappointed and frustrated as other students. After all, as a football fan in his previous life, he had witnessed countless defeats of his country. Qiu Zhang also had a face full of resentment, and was obviously extremely dissatisfied with today's defeat. They climbed up the stairs of the tower, and Joel received a system prompt at this time. It is detected that the host uses external forces to interfere with the extraction of magic source qualifications. The system will issue a side task to the host according to the severity of the consequences. Ding. The side task is triggered. The task period is 90 days. If it exceeds the specified time limit, the task will be considered failed. Task content: save Professor Claire White and eliminate the hidden dangers that threaten his life. Task failure penalty: the host's memory decreases by 40%. Since this task is difficult, the system will give generous rewards depending on the completion of the task. Memory decreases by 40%? Isn't this punishment a bit harsh? In addition, what does it mean to save Professor Claire White? Joel was thinking about the content of this side quest when he went upstairs. He almost tripped over the stairs accidentally. It was Haley who helped him up. Walk carefully and don't be distracted. Haley kindly reminded him. Joel nodded and followed everyone to the eagle-shaped door knocker. After answering the door knocker's questions, they poured into the common room. No one took the initiative to speak. The students who were originally reading, studying, and playing in the lounge also kept silent. They judged from the faces of their classmates that today's Quidditch game must not be ideal. Those who should go back to the dormitory went back to the dormitory. Those who should go to study went to study with 2 books. And some people couldn't stand the depressing atmosphere in the common room, so they simply packed their bags and went to the library. Joel and a few friends stayed in the common room, and at this time he was holding a wand and casting small spells. Sticking spell, floating spell, one spell after another became familiar in his hands. Just as Joel was immersed in the wonderful world of spells, the Ravenclaw Quidditch team returned to the common room, and the 7 Quidditch players looked at everyone in the common room. Roger Davis pursed his lips, and he and the other players bowed slightly to everyone present. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. The Quidditch captain is also in the 7th grade this year. He is a sturdy goalkeeper. He lost 140 points against the Gryffindor Chasers today and was almost stunned. This is his 4th year leading the Ravenclaw Quidditch team to the Quidditch Cup. He didn't expect to suffer such a terrible defeat. As the captain, he almost didn't have the face to face these classmates who had high hopes and support for them. The students in the common room did not respond. Everyone watched the Quidditch players return to the dormitory area with their flying brooms, and then they discussed in a low voice. Joel did not get involved in this muddy water. He was thinking about Professor White. Another defeat in Quidditch put them at a disadvantage in the competition for the House Cup. Ravenclaw House is currently ranked last. There are still 3 months left before the end of the semester, and they don't have much time to turn the tables. Catelyn, the head of the class, is now extremely anxious. They call on Ravenclaw students to actively speak and answer questions in class and strive to earn some points to narrow the gap, but it is ultimately a drop in the bucket, and it is difficult to reverse the fortunes. Slytherin House defeated Hufflepuff House next weekend, and with Professor Snape's fair teaching, Slytherin House's score directly climbed to the 1st place. Some of the head of the house are not having a good time, but Joel himself is living a very comfortable life. After having magic power, he found that he was particularly talented in charms and transfiguration. He caught up quickly in these 2 courses and has successfully surpassed many of his classmates. It is now Friday morning, and they and the Hufflepuff students are sitting honestly in the underground potion classroom, fiddling with the crucible in front of them. Laughter potion, you'd better be careful, don't drink it all up easily. Professor Snape paced in the classroom, still speaking in a feminine tone. Once you accidentally drink the laughter potion, you will laugh uncontrollably for up to 3 days. Neither the hospital wing nor St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Injuries and Maladies can treat you. You can only laugh honestly for 3 days, and then return home rubbing your tired throat and stomach that is about to cramp. The leaves of the Ariath tree should be added last, and the fluff of the cat tails must be evenly spread around the crucible, and it cannot be concentrated in one place. He leaned over to look at Eddie's crucible, his greasy hair hanging in the air, emitting a black and shiny luster. Seeing the cattail's fluff gathered in the crucible, the potion in the crucible gurgled and bubbled, and swallowed all the fluff. Now the potion is shit yellow, not the light blue described in the textbook. Professor Snape's eyebrows were twisted into a ball, and the corners of his mouth were tightly pursed. 5 points deducted from Ravenclaw. Mr. Carmichael, you obviously don't take my word seriously. He waved his wand and emptied Eddie's cauldron, which meant that his practical score for this class was 0. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 48, Snape's Surprise. Professor Snape walked around the classroom twice and came to Joel's desk. He had some impression of Joel. This kid, like Eddie Carmichael just now, was an idiot in potions. He deliberately walked past the 2 of them in every class and deducted several points from Ravenclaw. In the past, it was because Ravenclaw had too many points, and he had to deduct points from them in order to let Slytherin win the House Cup. Now Slytherin was at the top of the list, and their old rival Gryffindor was still firmly suppressed by them. People are in high spirits when they are happy, and Snape was not going to make an exception today. He planned to deduct a few more points from Ravenclaw to celebrate. He saw Joel was awkwardly poking the bottom of the crucible with his wand. The crucible filled with potion was crackling and emitting sparks, and white smoke enveloped the potion in the crucible. Snape's mouth corners slightly raised, looking at Joel's flustered movements. He had already thought of how to ridicule this boy. Joel then pulled his wand out from under the crucible, fanned the white mist in front of him with his left hand, then held the Ariath leaves in the tray with his right hand, circled his arm above the crucible, and sprinkled the leaves evenly around the crucible. The white mist dissipated, and Snape saw a pot of azure potion. The Ariath leaves floated on the water and gradually sank, and the color of the whole pot of potion changed from dark to light, until the leaves were all melted, and the potion turned light blue. Snape raised his eyebrows in surprise. He never expected that Joel Taylor, a student who had been mediocre in potion science for half a semester, could successfully brew the laughter potion. He looked at the relieved smile on Joel's face and felt a little depressed, but he immediately realized that his idea was extremely wrong. Shouldn't a teacher like him be happy that his students can make progress? Snape shook his head slightly and walked past him without saying a word to Joel. Joel was immersed in the joy of successfully making a potion. Since he gained more powerful magic power, he found that even his control over magic power was much stronger than before. At least he could fuse the potion ingredients normally. For the first time, he felt how wonderful it was to use his own magic power to make the potion materials in the crucible fuse with each other. The slightly rising mist and the fragrance of potion filled the nose. The potion was really fascinating. Potions can really be used for rowing. After class, Eddie came to Joel and muttered with some resentment, "Joel, how can you make a potion? Something is wrong. Something is wrong." Alan had a bit of joy on his face. "Joel, congratulations." Joel scratched the back of his head. "It's no big deal. It's just that my brain suddenly opened up." The 4 people in the dormitory followed the crowd up the stairs and successfully arrived at the auditorium. Professor Snape was late for get out of class today, and the auditorium was already full of people. Fried chicken legs, fried chicken legs. Eddie kept mumbling. He was very unhappy today. Originally, he and Joel were brothers in the potion class. Even if he was scolded by Professor Snape and deducted a few points, he could look at Joel for comfort. But he never expected that Joel would be the first to betray the revolution. How could he brew potions? Could it be that he would be the only one left in the first year of Ravenclaw to face Snape's sarcasm in the future? Eddie went to the Hufflepuff long table and asked his acquaintance Cedric Diggory for a large plate of fried chicken legs. He stuffed one into his mouth and then vented all his negative emotions on the chicken legs in his mouth, biting the chicken leg bones with a piercing sound that made his scalp numb. Joel and the other 2 helplessly watched Eddie sitting on the chair and mad at the chicken legs in front of him. They looked at each other and shook their heads. Joel took a sip of the smooth pumpkin juice, and Haley and QIU rushed over with potion textbooks. "Joel, can you practice the leg locking spell with me this afternoon? I don't understand the swinging action of the stick." Haley walked to Joel, leaned over and whispered, "Sure, no problem." It happened that Joel didn't have anything important to do in the afternoon. "Then I'll wait for you in the common room at 2 o'clock in the afternoon." Haley smiled, and her smile was like the warm sunshine in early spring, which was particularly warm to the heart, but the long black hair on both sides of her cheeks blocked this beautiful scenery, and only Joel could see it. She turned her head to find QIU Zhang, but the first person she saw was Eddie sitting next to Joel. He had a twisted face and was biting a fried chicken leg frantically, as if this chicken leg had some blood feud with him, and it would be difficult to relieve his hatred if he didn't eat it. Haley was startled by Eddie's expression. QIU was sitting not far behind Eddie. In order to avoid Eddie, she deliberately went around to the other side of the long table and walked a long way to find a seat. A group of owls broke into the auditorium and brought letters to everyone. Joel and Sergi also received a letter each, which was sent by Ron and Ginny, the Weasley siblings. The letter told about their recent situation and also included Mrs. Weasley's thanks to Joel. Before Christmas, Joel sent 2 sets of complete solutions to magic courses to the Weasley siblings. Mrs. Weasley has been urging them to work hard to absorb the new knowledge on them. In her opinion, this kind of preschool education is very necessary. Ginny is fine, but Ron is very resistant to this. He will enter school in the fall, and now he wants to stay at home and play every day. Unexpectedly, Joel gave him a big gift directly. At the end of the letter, he also attached a few words of complaint. After lunch, Joel and Sergi wrote 2 replies in the dormitory and then asked Joel's owl Poppy to send them to the burrow. "No, when you recite the spell Lacomata Mortis, your tone should be slightly raised, but you must swing the wand downwards, and it is best to have an arc, not swing it straight down." It is now 2:30 in the afternoon. Joel and Haley met in the common room and came to an abandoned classroom on the 3rd floor of the castle. After watching Haley cast the leg locking spell twice, Joel made his own suggestion. "Like this?" Haley tried it once. "Yes, it would be better if you wave the wand a little more forcefully." Joel found that Haley's talent for spells was quite good. She learned it as soon as she was taught. She must have been too nervous during the Christmas holiday. "Didn't you listen carefully in class?" Professor Flitwick explained the tricks of casting spells very clearly. Joel was a little confused. Haley blushed. "I was busy taking notes on the blackboard in class and didn't hear what Professor Flitwick said." That's not good. You can borrow your classmates' notes after class, but if you miss the tricks Professor Flitwick taught, there will be no second time. Joel emphasized. Listen carefully to Professor Flitwick's lectures in the future, and I'll lend you my notes when you come back. He frowned and said, "Oh." Haley nodded vigorously. Please vote for recommendation. Weekly summary. From last Friday to today. Investment plus 11 equals 1 update. Recommendation plus 160 equals 1 update. Collection plus 300 equals 1 update. Add up all the scattered updates to make 4 updates, and start posting them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Female Ghost. On Wednesday, during the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, Professor Claire White walked into the classroom as the bell rang. Her steps were weak and her dark circles were obvious. It was obvious that she had not rested well. Her eyes were narrowed into slits. She held a large cloth bag in her hand. There were still living creatures struggling in the bag. Many girls took 2 steps back when they saw the bag. For several months, whenever Professor White walked into the classroom with such a large cloth bag, they would definitely have a hard time. The bag was filled with strange black magic creatures, which often left a shadow on their young hearts. Professor White stood on the podium and shook her long burgundy hair. She put her hands on her waist and breathed a sigh of relief. She pulled herself together, roughly counted the number of people, and started the class. "There is a female ghost in it," Professor White said to the students who were nervous and frightened. "Don't worry, it has no attack power now. I caught it from Scotland and took very strict measures." She untied the large cloth bag, revealing the true appearance of the living creature inside. It looks exactly like a human woman, with long black hair and a white dress that hangs straight to the ground. There is not even a piece of flesh on the exposed cheeks. The dry skin is tightly attached to the bones, just like a skull covered with a layer of skin. The skin occasionally emits a green light, which looks quite weird. It is tied up with heavy chains and cannot move freely. The students were frightened by the appearance of the female ghost, and even Joel was no exception. "Isn't this Sadako? Why did she come to visit the magic world?" Joel looked at the female ghost in white clothes and black hair, and recalled the childhood shadow brought to him by the horror movie Midnight Ring. As soon as the female ghost came out of the bag, she saw a group of children standing in front of her. She instinctively opened her mouth and wanted to protect herself with her most powerful weapon. But nothing happened. "Don't worry, the biggest weapon of the female ghost is their scream, but now it can't scream." Professor White poked the female ghost with her wand, forcing it to move closer to the students. "I have cut off its vocal cords. In this class we are going to learn how to subdue dark magic creatures such as female ghosts," said Professor White. "First of all, its voice. We mentioned in the last theory class that the screams of female ghosts and mandrakes can cause people to fall into a coma, and it can even be fatal if it lasts too long. Currently there is no spell that can prevent the spread of the screams. Only soundproof earmuffs can protect your ears from sonic attacks," Professor White said with a frown. "Of course you can also release the magic power in your body to form a magic barrier, but this method is very complicated and consumes a lot of magic power. Most students will not come into contact with it until graduation. So if you go to the gathering places of female ghosts Scotland and Ireland, be sure to bring a pack of soundproof earmuffs," Professor White emphasized. Then she used her right hand to lift up the ghost's long black hair. The ghost's hair is also aggressive. If human skin comes into contact with it, it will corrode and burn, and in severe cases, the skin will even ulcerate. "Let me show you how to operate after wearing earmuffs when you encounter a ghost in the wild." Professor White waved her wand gently, and the chains on the ghost's body seemed to be cut off by a sharp blade, and all fell to the ground with a crash. The moment the ghost found that she had regained her freedom, she swung her hair and rushed towards the students. Her black hair was like a dense net, rushing towards them. At any time, the young of a species are the weakest existence, and they are also the first targets of most enemies. Before everyone screamed, Professor Claire White stood in front of the students, with a white light brewing in her wand. "Oh, come." Professor White held the wand, as if holding a sword, and chopped the ghost's head with the wand. A fiery white beam of light shot out from the tip of the wand, colliding with the ghost's lush black hair. The ghost screamed silently, and her black hair was peeled off layer by the white beam of light, turning into black smoke in the air and disappearing. Many students applauded behind Professor White. After several months of getting along, they thought Professor White was omnipotent, and dealing with a female ghost was a piece of cake. But Joel found that, although the female ghost was retreating step by step, its strands of black hair extended along her back to the ground, and surrounded Professor White in an extremely hidden posture. Professor White was in a bad state today. A bunch of troubles and the 7 grade courses at Hogwarts made her exhausted. She didn't rest well these days. She was even drowsy, and couldn't open her eyelids during class today. She didn't expect that the female ghost she captured in the deep forest of Scotland was so cunning, and knew this kind of fighting skills. When the female ghost's hair on the ground suddenly rose up, Professor White realized that she had no way to retreat. The black hair around her was like a siege net that enveloped her. The students in the audience finally reacted and screamed. They were so panicked that they didn't know what to do. Oh my god. Joel was well prepared. The spell he was ready to cast was aimed at the black hair surrounding Professor White. He imitated Professor White's posture and chopped it vertically from top to bottom. After all, it was the first time for him to cast this kind of spell. The power of the white light column was much weaker than that of Professor White, but it was more than enough to attack the few hairs of the female ghost. Amid the blazing light column and the screams of the students, the female ghost's hair gradually turned into ashes, which gave Professor White time to react. She immediately retracted her wand, took advantage of the gap, and kicked the female ghost's flat chest, knocking her to the ground. Then she began to attack with her fists and feet like a storm, picking up the places that were not protected by the black hair. Soon, the female ghost's white clothes became tattered, and several cuts were torn to reveal the shriveled skin inside, which looked unattractive. The ghost girl had no power to fight back under Professor White's attack, but the students felt accustomed to it. Since the beginning of the school year, Professor White has fought against dark magic creatures countless times, and she seems to be particularly good at close combat. Finally, Professor White put down the dying ghost girl, took a breath, and turned back to the students and said, "It seems that I underestimated the intelligence of the ghost girls before. They seem to be good at sneak attacks. The spell is Ossig, and the posture is vertical chop. Don't forget it." Professor White looked at Joel, who was standing in the front, meaningfully. "Mr. Taylor did a very good job. Ravenclaw plus 10 points." The students spontaneously applauded, and Alan and Haley's slaps were particularly loud. Professor White waved her wand and touched the iron chains piled on the ground. The chains flew up and tied up the ghost girl tightly. She put the ghost girl back into the big cloth bag, let the students study on their own, and rushed back to the office with the big cloth bag. Please vote for recommendation. Chapter 50, Professor White's Trail. Claire White walked downstairs to the office with a cloth bag in her hand. Her steps were a little slow, and her right leg would shrink unnaturally when she touched the steps. She cursed secretly. When she reached the staircase platform on the 3rd and 4th floors, she was already a little exhausted. She had not slept for many days and the sudden change today made her body very tired. She was blurry and even had some double vision. After heavy breathing, she limped back to the office with a large cloth bag. At this time, the defense against the dark arts classroom on the 4th floor was very noisy, and many students were talking about what had just happened in their seats. Joel, as one of the protagonists of the incident, answered several of the same questions from Eddie, Alan, and Haley one by one, and then returned to his seat by the window impatiently to think. He felt that Professor White's state was a little wrong. Judging from the strength she had shown before, there was no reason for her not to notice the ghost's intention to sneak attack. Combined with Professor White's poor state, when she walked into the classroom, Joel knew that she must have encountered some trouble, which should correspond to the mandatory task issued by the system. Eliminate the hidden danger that threatens Professor White's life. Joel wondered in his heart, what happened to her? The answer to this question has troubled Joel for a long time, and he has not found any useful clues until now. Ms. Marchbank of the Wizard Examinations Authority sent several letters at the end of March, negotiating with them to start producing complete solutions to the remaining magic courses for the remaining grades. This teaching aid series has earned a lot of popularity and gold galleons for the British Ministry of Magic overseas, making the current Minister of Magic Cornelius Fudge very happy. He ordered the staff of the Wizard Examinations Authority to keep in close contact with the 4 CLBTs and produce subsequent series as soon as possible. But for the 4 first-year students, the difficulty of the senior courses is there. They can only rely on their own accumulation to complete the production of teaching aids for the 4 subjects of potions, spells, transfiguration, and history of magic. What do you say? Joel sat on a chair in the dormitory, waving Ms. Marchbank's reply letter. Are we going to continue with this series? The other 3 people in the dormitory sat on their chairs with melancholy expressions. The Ministry of Magic gave 2 options. The first is that each of us will enjoy 5% of the subsequent income of CLBT Magic Course Complete Solution and retain the copyright, which means that we are still the authors of the remaining series of teaching aids. This 5% is a pre-tax profit. According to the regulations of the British Ministry of Magic, we have to pay 12% tax on the part of our monthly income that exceeds 50 gold galleons. This is not a small amount. Sergei folded his arms across his chest, closed his eyes and frowned. The second option is to accept the buyout offer from the Ministry of Magic. They will pay us 20,000 gold galleons after tax in one lump sum. If divided equally among 4 people, each person will get 5,000 galleons, but there will be no monthly share. Do we have to sell it? Eddie was reluctant. We can publish a series of teaching aids for 1 grade every year. No, Alan, who has been exposed to business since childhood, objected. This set of teaching aids is very popular overseas now. Only by striking while the iron is hot can we achieve good results. If we wait another half a year, the heat will be over. Besides, we really can't produce teaching aids for high grades at our current level. If we force it to produce poor results, it will only make us a laughingstock. From all aspects, selling these proceeds to the British Ministry of Magic is the wisest choice. Joel analyzed. I think the profit from the commission is higher than the buyout profit, Sergei managed to say, as long as the total global revenue of the CLBT exceeds 100,000 galleons, we won't lose money. 100,000 gold galleons. Eddie felt that the gold galleons were piled up into small mountains in front of him, radiating golden light and attracting attention. As long as 50,000 copies of the course are sold, I can earn 100,000 galleons. It doesn't sound difficult. After all, there are so many potential customers. Alan also agreed with Sergio's choice. The 4 people in the dormitory voted in favor, and Joel wrote a reply with a pen and asked his owl Poppy to send it out. 2 days later, Ms. Marchbank's letter was sent back, which also included a letter from Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, and a pile of documents that needed to be signed. After all the arrangements were made, Joel sat back in the chair, with his hands crossed behind his head, feeling comfortable and cozy. He was very happy to think that he would receive a large dividend every month. Joel hummed a little tune and pulled out a piece of parchment from the History of Magic textbook, on which some clues were written here and there. After lunch at the teacher's seat in the auditorium every day, he went to the bathroom on the 3rd floor to wash his hands. Tuesday and Friday afternoons were laundry time. He left the castle on time with a wooden box at 7 PM on Saturday and returned to the castle at 7 AM on Monday. This was the result of Joel's tracking of Professor White in the past 2 weeks. Fortunately, there were many people in the castle, which did not arouse Professor White's suspicion. Joel took the quill pen and dipped it in the ink bottle twice. It has been 7 months since he came to this world. He has completely adapted to this Western medieval writing style. He was writing a draft next to him, trying to connect various clues together. Excluding useless clues, Joel did not believe that there was any creature in Hogwarts Castle that could endanger Professor White's life. Just kidding. Harry Potter has not yet enrolled in school, and the basilisk is nonsense. Besides, there are no Japanese elementary school students in the castle, so how could anyone die? Therefore, Professor White's life is in danger only between 7 PM on Saturday and 7 AM on Monday. Only during this period of time is Professor White not in the castle. What is she going to do when she leaves here? The quill pen in Joel's hand knocked on the table impatiently. He thought of this and then stopped. If he wanted to complete this mandatory task, he had to find out Professor White's movements before he could take action. Otherwise, leave the castle with Professor White on Saturday? A bold idea came to his mind, and the quill pen scratched aimlessly on the parchment. Fight a wave. Waiting like this is not a solution. Joel made up his mind. He called out the system panel and scanned the column of spells. Finally, he found the spell he wanted. Disillusionment. The progress bar below reads 0/250. This spell is much more expensive than the paste spell, right? Joel felt a pang of pain when he saw the price, but when he thought of the punishment for not completing the mandatory task, he made up his mind and spent 250 galleons. 250 gold galleons were recharged into the system and quickly cleared. The disillusionment spell in the column of spells was completely lit up, which marked that his understanding of this spell had reached the level of perfection. It's so terrifying that you can learn a spell in just 7 seconds. It's so wonderful. Everything is in the Pipi Xie crypt and gold system. Please recommend it. Thank you. I don't know, it's been 1,000 years. I don't know it for the 500 starting coins reward. Thank you 2017021320033449 for the 100 starting coins reward. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.